Well, good evening, fellow heretics. Welcome to tonight's show. I am your host, Captain Dadpool.
And I'm Natty Nat.
And you are watching Nerds and Heresy.
Hold on to your butts.
Nailed it. Let's see if I get the outro right at the end of the show.
I love that
Let's
intro.
even do the outro this time.
Yes, really.
Step one.
Well, hi, guys. Welcome to the show.
back,
Thanks so much for
Forrest.
coming on. I'm very excited.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
And Shannon, it's finally nice to have you on the show while I'm here.
Yes, it's nice to
Yeah.
meet you. It's nice to meet you. I'm a
Yeah.
fan, so I'm excited
thank you.
to
I
be back.
appreciate it.
I'm
I'm
a
fan of
viewer.
yours as well.
Oh, thank you. That's kind. That's kind. There's no accounting for taste, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everyone makes mistakes. That's fine.
now I'm
Well-
not sure if I trust my own judgment.
We could talk about that.
We
Let's
could.
get into the psychology behind this.
We could do that. Let's get introductions out of the way first.
Go for it.
Forrest, you were on last week, so let's get Shannon on first. Shannon, where can everybody find you? What do you got going on these days?
Oh, okay. Well, my name is Shannon Q. I have a YouTube channel called Shannon Q. I am also one of the reoccurring hosts on a show called The Atheist Experience, which some people may have heard of. It's been around
Sounds
on YouTube.
vaguely familiar. It's ringing a bell or two.
Yeah, and I have an honors degree in psychology, and I had a focus in perceptual cognition, communication theory, and neuroscience. So I like to talk about the intersection of psychology and faith a lot on my channel and in my interactions. I'm a big brain nerd, love chit-chatting about brains, so I'm excited to get into that tonight. And yeah, I guess that's it about me. Also, I don't like Christian counselors. So if you don't like Christian counselors too, you can go on my
Yeah.
YouTube channel. There's an entire playlist where I just tear them to pieces because they can fuck off. I'm allowed to swear, right? It doesn't matter.
No,
They can
you
fuck
are
off.
absolutely
Okay.
allowed to. It's totally cool.
I don't
We're
like
fine
them.
with this.
So yeah,
I
that's-
actually took Christian counseling courses in college, in Bible college. and
sounds
yeah,
right.
Not fun. I go so.
Yeah. You dislike.
Well,
Thumbs
I have a personal beef with people that bring their faith into any sort of medical or professional field.
Absolutely.
It's just one of those things I've come across a little too often for me to be comfortable with.
There's a whole
so-
industrial complex built around them, especially in the United States. They have multiple organizations where they have the artifice of being legitimate counselors. They essentially kind of trick people into thinking that they're mental health professionals when they abjectly are not.
Yup.
So I take umbrage with that and am not quiet about it. Any opportunity I have to slight them, I do.
No, I get it.
You are doing the world a massive service by doing so.
Thank you. That's
Mhm.
kind.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Forrest, you want to reintroduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sure. I'll be brief since I did it last time as well. Hi, my name is Forrest Valkai. I'm an evolutionary biologist and a bioanthropologist. I study evolution and humans, and by extension, human evolution. I didn't expect to be going degrees, but I guess I didn't say it a little bit. My degrees are in education, general biology, integrative biology. I did a tremendous amount of undergraduate field research in vertebrate paleontology, human anatomy, and neuroscience. And now I'm a master's student studying bioanthropology and archaeology. And like we talked about last week, my thesis is using stable isotope analysis to do paleoecological reconstruction. And it's freaking sick, dude.
Awesome.
So long story short, I'm a scientist and I like humans is what I do.
Cool.
And I'm a scientist, and I don't always like humans. So it works back and forth.
Valid. That's
Balance, as all things should be.
I like
Forrest,
some
I-
humans.
I got to ask about your last name before we
Yes.
get started. What's
Mine?
Yeah, you have
Yeah,
a really
thank
cool last
Valkai,
name.
yeah.
I want to know about it. Where'd it come from?
I made it. Yeah.
Oh, it's
I-
like your
No, it is my real last name. It's my legal name. I changed
Oh,
my
cool.
name to this. Yeah, long story. So it's actually there's a variety
Even
of things
more
that go along with
interesting.
this. But
Yeah, I'm more intrigued now.
it isn't something that I usually talk about too much, but I can go in a little bit into it.
you
Just
don't
'cause
got to
I-
go
I
into it
don't
if you
know.
don't want to. I was
Oh no, it's
curious.
fine. It's not a huge deal. Gosh, there's a lot to say about it, but I can just say simply that the word Valkai is an Anglicization of the word for life in Tamil, which is one of the oldest spoken languages in the world still around. I had a professor during my undergrad who was a cell biologist who that was her native tongue, and so she kind of helped me make sure that it was right enough, for a white person who has no background in the language whatsoever. Yeah, it means life, which is good for me because I'm a biologist, number one, and also because if life means anything, it means freedom. It means the ability to choose your destiny and make up your mind and be who you want to be. And I rejected the what was put upon me as a child, the destiny that was set out for me. I don't want anybody to ever have to live or grow up the way that I did, and that's a big part of my dream in my life is to make the world a little bit better, so that that's not an issue for anybody anymore. And so redefining my name and changing it was a great way for me to start a new family. I'm getting married next year, so now we both change our last name. It isn't just her who has to do it. So we have a new family, a new hope, a new vision. This means something to us. It isn't just something that I was born with and stuck with. The only reason I didn't change my first name too is because I've got almost 30 years of people that know it.
Well, Forrest is a really cool first name anyway.
I appreciate that.
No reason to change that.
But it's a new family. It's a new destiny.
If you were named like Ricky or something, I'd understand.
Yeah, or Shannon.
Those are cool. See, I'm all about names that are just like fucking normal. Like if I could pick a name, it'd be Jack. Just something simple. Just But like that's I don't know. If one more person tells me run Forrest run, I'm gonna set them on fire. But
that's valid. That is valid. That would be that's torturous. Yeah.
I can see where like that being a reference is a big issue.
Yeah,
well, I grew up being called Ricky Tikki Tavi, Ricky Lake, Ricky Martin.
Nice.
Yeah, like that,
There's nothing clever you can do with Shannon.
Well, okay, so I have a friend named Shannon. We call her Shanananon.
Or shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
I would own shenanigans. That would be my screen
I'm fine
name.
with it.
I liked
it. Compliment even.
She was always like, "Why do you add syllables? I mean, that's not a nickname." Like, it is Shanananon.
Shenananan.
You have to accept it now. Shanananan. Enjoy my Shanananan again.
What
I do get
what I find really funny about my last name is in Old English it means badger, right? Badass. But prior to that, it was Scandinavian and it means trousers. Like pants. So it went from badger to pants. I'm not even kidding.
Badger pants is another really cool handle, though. I mean,
pants. I love it.
I wish I had thought of that when I started my TikTok account.
Captain Badger Pants? How rad would that be? That'd be sick.
I won't
Never
tell
too
you
late
what
to
my
rebrand.
I won't tell you what my last name is, but I can tell you its meaning. It's quite literally means nothing. But my last name is also like the Scottish equivalent of Jon Snow. Like from Game of Thrones. It's a bastardized name, and it's like supposed to be an insult, which is why I kept it, because I think it's kind of funny. I lean into it.
That's rad.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I know it sometimes.
Do people still know Ricky Tikki Tavi? They fucking better. It's a great.
It's an old one. That's like
I love that story.
That's a millennial thing. Like, do Gen Xers even know what that is? Or
I don't know.
I saw a video today of an iPod shuffle, and some girl used it as a hair clip on.
Yeah, I saw that. That was very depressing.
That hurts my feelings. I miss those. Those were the best running.
They were. They're fucking players.
They were so effective.
Yeah.
I never got one of the cool little square ones. I always had like the ones that looked like a pregnancy test. That was mine for like all of high school.
That's the one I had.
Yeah.
That's the one I had.
I couldn't afford the new one. I had that one, and that was it.
It was like less is more
held
back
like 16
then.
songs, but it was enough for you to get through a run.
I thought I would reload it before I went for a run.
You didn't need a screen. You didn't need Wi-Fi. You didn't need Bluetooth. You just had this little fucking grain of rice that you clipped onto your collar, and you're good to go for a few hours.
What am I, fucking Bill Gates? You think I need all that fancy shit?
Yeah, right? Yeah, less is more. Yeah.
So ostentatious.
Gotcha. All right, so with all that out of the way.
Yeah.
Good start. Good start to the show.
That's right. All the important
good
things
energy in the studio.
Where do we even go?
Everything's out of the way. So yeah, the brain. What do you guys make of that whole thing?
Oh wow. Okay.
Not a fan.
I mean,
I'm a
not
huge fan.
subtle
Gonna give it a
intro,
shotgun
but
blast and
Huge
see
fan.
hit it head on.
Actually,
No, okay.
I think we can get started with what we
It
get
fell flat.
what we get faced with probably the most in regards to the brain as atheists is consciousness.
The
Right.
same things. Okay.
That's all. We don't even have to go into that if you don't want to.
Oh no, I'm good with
Why not?
consciousness. I just finished Anil Seth's book, which is really good. It's called Being You. And before that, I finished Mark Somm's book, The Hidden Spring. Both of them are really interesting takes on consciousness and how it pertains to neuroscience. They have slightly different takes. So I'd love to talk about consciousness. I could talk about consciousness and the brain all day. I will take over if someone doesn't stop me and talk about
Let's
consciousness.
start there.
Consciousness and the soul are two of my favorite topics of discussion. And I think that there's some interplay between the two of them, depending on who you're talking to. But consciousness is fascinating.
I guess this is one of those rare times where I can say a personal belief versus scientific understanding.
Okay.
But I'm of the personal belief that consciousness is the soul. Like it is one and the same. And
they're interchangeable concepts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's just what you do, how you think, and who you are all part of what a soul is. So it's
we figured that out, Morgan.
The brain is not good to eat.
Okay, Morgan, we're not talking about cannibalism tonight unless we want to get into prions, in which case I am all about talking about prions.
We talked about for like an hour yesterday with TikTok Jesus.
You're talking about cannibalism?
Yes.
That's just where the conversation went.
The things I
organically left there.
Okay, so I just lost a bet with someone because I was like, we'll go at least 10 minutes into this without bringing up cannibalism, and then boom.
Just under the wire, too. Just under the wire.
If you're watching, now you know.
So the last thing I read about consciousness is it's been a while, but the last thing I read was something to the effect of we're expected to know much more about it in 20 years or so than we do now. Like it's somewhat of a mystery now, but in about 20 years, we're expected to make some headway in that area. Does that make sense? Is that more or less true?
Two things. Number one, headway. Also,
Boom,
I suppose that's just as true as it is with anything else. I mean, Nick, we know now. I can describe consciousness to you as an emergent property of the electrochemical activity in the brain. It's the same thing as the tides. A tide is not a thing that you have. It's the result of the whole ass ocean and the moon interacting together. And so it's not just like, here is the tide or what it is. So I can describe that to you, but I couldn't map it. I couldn't tell you, in great detail how it functions or anything like that. I can just tell you the basic definition. So the same way, I think, as we go along with it, absolutely. Just like anything else, same thing with the genome, the same thing with, pick your science topic. Absolutely.
Well, what would be the basic definition, just as a place to get started? How would you define consciousness?
I think it's having any sort of affect, something that it is like to be something, I think is what the base definition of consciousness is. And then it's iterative from there. Like there's different gradients of affect, right? So I gleaned this sort of from Mark Somm's work, which I think is really, really interesting. He looked at encephalitic children. So children who basically didn't have any cortical structures. So they didn't have the thing that people think of as the brain is the thing that's filled with all the gyri that's on top. That's the cortices of the brain, but that's not really the brain. That's a component of the brain. Encephalitic children don't have that, but they do have midbrain structures. They have cerebellums. They have a brainstem. So he pointed out that they still have these sort of emotional reactions. So if an encephalitic child has their baby brother sat on their lap, they have a visceral sort of emotional reaction, which means that they're having an experience, and having an experience is a kind of consciousness. So that would lead people to believe that it's not necessarily the brain, like the cortices that do it, But he parlays from there, and this is what I think is interesting, to discuss specific brain structures. So he talks about the reticular formation. The reticular formation is in the brainstem. And if you put a pinprick in the reticular formation, you lose consciousness. That's it. Lights out. You're done. You are done. But that doesn't mean that the reticular formation is consciousness. That could kind of essentially be an emotional gateway. And emotions are the substrate that consciousness and conscious experience and intellect and cognitive abilities are built atop of. So I think that emotion is essentially the baseline. Like having an experience at all is emotional. And there's no such thing as an emotion that's unconscious. So that's the baseline for conscious experience to me. And then on top of that, like I said, it becomes iterative. And then you can have a gradient of experience and a breadth of experience that's built on top. I don't know, maybe Forrest has a different sort of perspective on it than I do.
No, I think it's really interesting that you started off by talking about affect. You talk about experience and not agency, because that's the one thing I was going to jump onto is like to say that most people, when they talk about consciousness, they're talking about what they see out of somebody,
right.
Like how are they affecting the world? How are they changing things around them? But I think it's really interesting. And I think it's really spot on that you're talking about it's what's coming in. It's whether or not you're able to process stimuli. And that's a lot harder to test because there could be no output, but this is still input that you have to figure out how to measure that outside of an MRI.
Yeah.
So I think that's excellent. That's the best way.
That's a great way of putting
would
it.
not have been able to do that any better.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people focus on things like the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which is a part of the brain that's like on the lower part of your frontal lobe. And that is kind of an integrative area. So people, when they have that, yes, there you go. You got I want one of those so bad to put on my empty shelves.
I use it as a teaching tool all the time.
Oh, I love it.
She's talking right in here.
That's so awesome. Okay, so you can point to what I'm talking about. So the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, exactly. So that's an integrative area. So that's an area of the brain that essentially kind of unifies these experiential, emotional affects with this cognitive affect that we have. And we recognize this sort of cognitive affect more so as people, because we have cognitive affect. We think thoughts, and we think that thoughts are essentially consciousness, but consciousness is at like a level that subverts cognition. Cognition is built atop consciousness. You can't have cognition without consciousness, but you can have consciousness without cognition. So the ventromedial prefrontal cortex is an area that we look at because it helps to do that integration into what becomes the whole version of us when everything's operating correctly. And that it's very important. And that's what Anil focused on, who's very, very fascinating. He focused a great deal on perception too, like perceptual cognition. And I think that that's where Mark misses, is where Anil hits. And that is that perception is something, and this could just be my bias because visual perception is my jam. Like I'll talk about opsons for hours with anybody, which are like nobody cares. But anyway, I'll talk about like visual cognition for hours, but perception, you care?
I care.
Well, opsons are proteins that are on the rods and cones on your retina. They're light sensitive proteins. And essentially when light hits them, they change their shape is probably the best way to put it. And then that change in shape is recognized through the optic tract, which then crosses over on the optic chiasm and it hits the occipital lobe and then is recognized as a thing, like as an affect. So like what your eyes see isn't like a photo of what's in front of you. It's a representative model based on previous experience, and it's all based on opsin shapes, which I think is pretty cool. It's just everything we see is just a difference in protein shapes. that's all it is.
I've come across people when talking about how we see the world, and I think I've messed with some people who think like the Matrix like the ideology of the Matrix and like everything's simulation. I was like, yeah, but what you see in front of you is not what you see in front of you, except that it is what you see in front of you. It all depends on how your eye processes it. And
not even just your eye.
Have these moments where they're like,
everything you see is upside down, backwards, and full of holes, like because your visual system processes on contralateral sides because of the optic chiasm and the way that your optic nerve operates. So everything that's on your right visual field actually hits this side of the eye and vice versa, and then splits over. And it's upside down because just by the way refraction works because of the shape of the eye. So everything you see is literally upside down, backwards, filled with holes, because if you have a huge blind spot where your optic nerve exits the back of your eye. And on top of that, your aqueous and vitreous humor, which are the liquids that are inside of your eye, are filled with little floaties that are also obstructing your view. So what you see isn't actually what you see at all. Like what's in front of you, what you see is a reconstruction from your brain, which is why I think perception is so important when it comes to consciousness and when it comes to cognition, especially because you're constructing the world around you more than you even conceivably realize.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge part of it. I used to do this all the time with students. I would have them do like this kind of finger trick where you can find your blind spot, things like that, where they can kind of start to figure out just how big those blind spots are. And then just kind of once they realize that's there, okay, so now you have to recognize that there's at least this part of your vision that isn't a real thing, that your brain just fill in the blank. Show them a few other optical illusions, like the one where the dots pop up or the lines go wavy. All right, now I want you to go home and look at everything that you know to be true, everything in your life.
Question your whole life.
Yes. Welcome to science class, where we make you question the reality that you weren't sure you wanted to be a part of in the first place. That's
right. Who signed up for the existential crisis? Everyone? All right.
So we got a super chat from the one and only Jim Barrows, who I was watching earlier today on the Atheist Experience. If emotions is conscious, do coma patients have emotions?
I feel like I'm monopolizing. Forrest, go ahead. I
actually have very little intelligence to add because I don't have any information on like if there is an input there. Like we said a minute ago, that like the whole thing is the affect, and I don't have any really intelligent thing to say if we're talking about coma patients. That's such a diverse group with so many different variabilities of what that could mean. And I don't want to blanket them all in together and say, oh, well, there's this study or this, because like that's fuck, bro. So I'm hoping you have more than I do, because I was going to go off on a whole tangent about grandmother neurons after what you just said, and this is a curveball as a half for me.
Oh, grandmother neurons. Then we could talk about mirror neurons maybe too, and empathy. And okay, so anyway, but when it comes to coma patients, Forrest kind of hit the nail on the head. Actually, I don't have significantly more to contribute because there's a gradient. So somebody can be in a coma for a multitude of reasons. So it would kind of depend on the region of the brain that's affected and whether or not they're having any sort of like introspective, for the lack of a better word, I'm probably not choosing the right word, but like internal. They're having some sort of internal experience, like in a dream-like state. There is a chance that you could still have emotional presentations then. There's certain centers of the brain that you can look at to see if there's some sort of activity, but an emotional experience devoid of any perception, I'd have a hard time trying to seeing that as a conscious experience, because you at that point in time may not be aware of the emotional experience. Like you could be having an emotional center engage, but not have the awareness due to another center, like something like what's it called? The lateral geniculate nucleus. That kind of helps to integrate even within the midbrain structure. Into like it's like a conduit that helps to integrate perceptions and emotional affect into conscious experience. So if there was something wrong with that, you could potentially register on an MRI emotional centers being activated, but not have the experience of that emotional center. So it would be context dependent.
I'm glad to hear that there isn't too much more, because I was fucking freaking out. Like there could be a whole other world here that I hadn't even considered. Because that's the thing, like you absolutely have way more experience than me on this. Because like I have some undergrad courses in neuroscience. I've got independent field research. I'm deferring to you on everything here.
You have more than me. I have an undergrad degree. That's it. An honors degree. That's it. And a little bit of thesis work. That's all I got.
Same.
But this is where it's like, this is your area of expertise in that this is what you study. This is what you enjoy.
Oh, yeah. It's passion for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And like, I always like lean on the passionate scientists, because they're the ones that know their stuff better. Because they'll sit there and like look stuff up over and over again just to make sure that they know what they're talking about. And it's like, I appreciate that so much.
Well, yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn, and I'm certainly not an expert. So anything that I say, look up. Also, do not take my word for it. I've made a million mistakes in my life on live streams, and thought I knew things that ended up being inaccurate. So advocate for your own understanding. Absolutely everything that I say, do not take my word for it. Go and validate it using source methodology, and make sure that you are not just listening to me and thinking I know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
You also haven't said anything wrong yet, so there's that. Like, if you're interested,
still, it's a good
as
practice.
far as I know. Check me too.
You could be wrong too, though, Forrest.
Absolutely.
You could be wrong too.
If we're both screwed up, then that's one thing. But as far as I know, you've been spot the fuck on.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So what exactly is the finger trick that you were talking
about?
So
you make a U with your fingers like this, and hold them a little bit away from your face. And this is the tricky thing, all right? You're going to close one eye, we'll just say your left to be arbitrary, and look across at your other finger. So I'm closing my left eye. I'm using my right eye to look at the tip of my left finger. Does this make sense? So I'm looking across here. And then you're going to waggle your other finger back and forth. You might need to bring it in. You might need to push it out, but you'll find a spot. Mine's right here where the top of my right finger disappears. And the reason for this is, like Shannon was saying earlier, there is your optic nerve connects to the back of your eyeball, and you have a huge blind spot there because these are where these cells that absorb this light just can't exist. The nerve is connected there. That's why cephalopod eyes are so much cooler. But there's this huge blind spot there, and like she was talking about, welcome back.
I heard cephalopod.
And so this is a spot in your eyes where it's your brain's literally just making it up. It would drive you insane to have two giant holes in your vision here, and so your brain just takes all of this data and kind of just makes some bullshit that sounds about right, and it's not in your direct field of focus, so you don't really notice, and that's always there. There are other fun tricks you can do, like if you hold your fingers close together and look past them, you can make a little finger sausage that kind of floats in the air right there. That's an easy one to do, and it's just bullshit that your brain made up because it had the data and it just ran with it. And it's not a real thing.
I don't know.
You saw the finger sausage? Yeah.
I don't know if you've done the finding out finding out which eye is dominant too. So you pick a spot on the wall and put your fingers up to it in a triangle pattern, and then you bring it back until you're like in whichever eye was the dominant eye.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I haven't tried that one before.
I know that if you take your two hands, right, and you take your middle fingers and you cross them like that, and you do that, you can make this optical illusion.
I've never learned as much as I did just this moment.
Fucking burn him.
It's a witch.
Oh my God.
Like an amateur hour.
Oh, I just thought of a mistake I made not that long ago. It's periaqueductal gray. I said lateral geniculate nucleus. It's periaqueductal gray. Sorry. That's why you should look up things that I said.
Get off the show. Wrong with you.
It's the PAG. Sorry. Anyway, carry on.
That's a whole section I'm not good at anyway. I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't know if you hadn't told me. I would have believed you.
Look it up. Look it up. Maybe it was a test. This was a test to see if
that's what it was. I'm not good at that part.
So what is the relationship between everything we just talked about, and I don't know if this is a jump or not, like near-death experiences, you go on a deathbed and you go and see things, because that's another thing that we get a lot. Is there any correlation between consciousness and then like dying and then our subconscious recalling things? My understanding is, from what I've read, when you die on the operating table, neurologists are less interested in what's going on with your brain and more interested in reviving you. So there's not a whole lot of study as to what's happening in your brain as soon as you die. So it's somewhat of an uncharted field. Is that more or less correct?
So it's as far as everything we just talked about a minute ago, there is surely some correlation, but mainly,
I don't even know if that question made sense. I'm sorry.
I get where you're coming from, homie. The main thing about near-death experiences is it's DMT, yo. It's this chemical called dimethyltryptamine that's always in your brain just a little bit, and when you're dying, when your brain is starved of oxygen and things are shutting down, it dumps it, and it's a crazy powerful psychoactive thing that makes seconds feel like weeks. And you go on this crazy hallucinogenic trip. And this brings about a lot of people talk about how they see all these crazy geometric shapes and how they see people from other dimensions that they've never known and all these cool things.
Or they go on a tour of the hospital and they see like doctors in other rooms.
Yeah, they have a vivid dream, and it can range from something that's somewhat grounded in reality to something that's extreme and fantastical, but it always tends to be along the lines of their religious beliefs beforehand.
Shocking.
Because it's your brain that's doing it. It's not like some other shit comes in. It's your brain dumping the chemical in your brain into your brain to make your brain do things. So like
brainception.
It's brainception. And so it's explained a lot more. When you look at the whole, what this is and you try to come up with solutions for it, the question is, which is more likely? Is it more likely that everybody is actually having this insane, otherworldly, outer dimensional experience that happens to look like what they want it to look like? Or is it more likely to say when a brain is dying, it does weird shit? And so that's really what it comes down to is when we talk about near-death experiences, yeah, there is a somewhat of a dearth of actual study in them because it's just not as interesting as you might think that it is. You know what I mean?
Especially when you
also, it's uniquely difficult to study. How are you going to find something? Hey, you're interested in dying a little bit? We'll try to not make it permanent. We got to write down what you say,
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
we're gonna induce a chemically induced death.
Just
me.
Good with that? Quarter tablespoon of death.
We'll bring it back. We'll bring it back.
I can tell you right now, it's not pleasant.
Oh, I'm so sorry you experienced that.
Oh, multiple. It's
oh
fine.
My goodness.
Oh yeah, no, we can get into it some other time. But I think the big thing that was coming back was my eyes hurt really bad, and so my mother swears my eye color changed. I don't think so personally. Like I was also very young at the time, so there's like my blue eyes were slowly changing anyway. So I think she just thinks she just assumes that was the event that caused it. It's like,
that's
no, blue
what
eyes
happens
changed
when you see the face of God.
I saw no face.
Theism confirmed.
No, yeah, that was like one of the big things is because as a kid I went to church, and after the event happened and like people were praying over me and it was weird, and I was like, Mom, can I go home? It's like these people keep trying to touch me because I'm touched by God. And yeah, it was so. This is a whole other story we can talk about some other time.
It sounds incredibly rough. I'm sorry about that.
It was an unfortunate thing, but the long and short of it is, yeah, when people tell me they have these amazing experiences at death, I'm just like, well, lucky you.
Sick, bro.
I remember waking up and like my eyeballs hurt. Like my optic nerves were like, they had to have gone without oxygen for like a minute or two, and like they were just unhappy. So like my tear ducts were just going full tilt for like 24 hours after that, like just constantly trying to like make, like, not because I was crying, but because it was just like they were just trying to make my eyes all watery again, and it sucked. So
I can totally see somebody just being super condescending about that. Well, I once left my contacts in overnight too, so like I know.
Yes! Oh my God, I hear that shit all the time about stupid events. It's like, yes, I just went through surgery. Oh yeah, man, I just got the shot. I got a vaccine. And I was really sore too, and I was like, thanks. I was on bed rest for 2 months, but thanks. Ricky has.
I once had a hard time making my bed. Yeah.
Your daily updates from me basically this whole time. So
that's what I'm here for. I have an interesting experience, maybe kind of related to that. When I was 17, I got shot in a robbery. I was a bagger at a grocery store, and 2 gunmen came in, and one guy shot me through the chest. Like I have a scar right here, went all the way through me.
Shit.
The thing is, I was incredibly calm. Like when it happened, I thought I had been punched, like instantly. I didn't realize I had been shot. I was just standing there like, what the fuck was that? That was a loud noise. I don't know. And when everybody looked at me and they saw like me covered in blood, everybody started freaking out. Like, oh my God, Ricky's been shot. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like I was incredibly like just chill, just as I am right now.
That's
like,
the
what are you talking about?
adrenaline.
I got shot. What?
Yeah.
Oh God.
That's the adrenaline.
This
It
I was gonna
calms
say.
you down before it hypes you up.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah, I was gonna say that's very common when I hear stories about people who've been shot or stabbed. They're like, yeah, and then they punched me 5 times, and I looked down and I had 5 holes in me. And I'm like, what the fuck did that happen? You know?
Yeah.
Turns out I had been stabbed a bunch, and that's what your body's doing is it's in crisis mode, and the worst thing you could do right now is freak out. So, just might as well be chill about it. Walk your ass to a hospital.
It
was nuts. I had a my manager called 911, and they were like, "Okay, they said to lay down on the floor." I was like, "Oh, all right, I'll lay down on the floor. Sure, okay." Like it was weird to me.
Lay down before you fall down is the whole thing. It's like no, it's when you study, especially when you do like first aid and just basic first responder, like that's a huge part of it is get this person, even if they think they're fine. No, you're not. I promise you're not. You need to sit down.
It's weird because everyone's freaking out except for the guy who actually got shot.
Oh, yeah, that's so. Take it from someone that deals like I'm not trying to brag. This is like just something that happens a lot and often to me. Is like,
but I've shot a lot of people. All right, they're all this way,
and I'll wake up and people are panicked because I fainted. Oh shit! Everybody's freaking out. I'm just like, oh man, that was a rough one.
It's like what? I'm fine. Why is everybody so worried? We got Dr. Kill in the house.
Kip! Oh, he just did a video with Paul. That was so good.
He did. It was really good.
It was really good.
I heard that we all interpreted it as spiritual.
He's been on the show a couple times.
I like Kip.
Ooh,
I fucking love
a group spiritual encounter.
Let me read the question. My Christian friends and I
question for the panel. My Christian friends and I once heard a voice which we all once interpreted as a spiritual encounter. How does neuroscience address this?
Definitely somebody yelling.
Can I start on that one?
You go, and then I want to go. I want to talk about Elizabeth Loftus so bad. Go ahead.
All right, cool. Mine will be much less climactic, and it'll be really just hurtful, if anything. Mass hysteria is a thing, and oftentimes when you get a group of people, they all really believe a thing. They get hyped up about it. You can have an experience where one person says they're having the experience, another person believes them, and then is also saying they have that same experience. And you can go back and recreate memories later on. And that happens. That's not just a thing about like religious experiences. Most of your memories are fabrications. They're things that you tell yourself, and they change slowly over the years. And especially if you have somebody else who comes along and says, actually, it happened this way, you can convince yourself that it did, and it changes your literal memory of the situation. You can even create situations that never happened in the first place and be 100% convinced that it happened. These are all very well documented, very well understood psychological phenomena. And so when you have an experience like this, it's the same thing as like with a Ouija board. One person kind of moves it, whether they intend to or not. They kind of move the experience in a direction. Everybody else jumps on board. And then afterwards, we all heard a deep booming voice say, you need to go to Wendy's, right? Oh my God, that's exactly what it said. I know, right? And then 10 years down the line, and then the heavens parted and a light shone down, and we all knew that Frosties were the way of the Lord, and like that. And it becomes more and the fish gets bigger every time. So like, these are
big fish. Great movie.
Exactly.
Great
this
movie.
Is all how this stuff works.
Also, Monty Python. We are bringing Monty Python to this.
Absolutely.
And God looked upon thee. No.
Am I allowed to have a go? Because I want to talk about Elizabeth Loftus first.
By all means, that's my whole take. I could go into detail, but
your take is very similar to mine. I think you and I are going to be really good friends, for us, whether you like it or not. So,
I'm cool with
that. Okay, good, because you wasn't optional.
You're awesome. I don't care what Ricky says. You're great.
I know. He's intolerable.
We agreed not to bring that up.
So, Kip, I think that that sounds mundane to me because I spent a lot of time studying Elizabeth Loftus' work. So Elizabeth Loftus is pretty freaking awesome. So, and I know that Kip, you like doing source methodology, and you are a historian who loves going back to the research. So I would direct you towards Elizabeth Loftus, and I will give you an example of why, and it's just going to kind of piggyback off of what Forrest just said. So Elizabeth's work was about memory priming and essentially being able to kind of implant memories and crowd conformity and how that operates. She has a broad body of work, but here's one example of priming. So she showed people in several different groups a car accident. And in one group, she said, how fast was the car going when it bumped the other car? Another, she said, how fast was the car going when it smashed into the other car? And then there was a third group, I can't remember, but it was iterative in its implications through vocabulary and what vocabulary means in the way of priming. So as you can imagine, the group that had smash versus the group that had bump, they, even though it was the same video they were watching, they graded the speed that the car was going significantly higher, even though they had the same exact experience, but they were primed to interpret and encode that experience differently. And that priming to interpret and encode the experience is what forms that memory. And that memory is so strong that they were like really, really, really interested in holding on to it, because once you encode a memory, you don't want to be wrong about stuff. I mean, stuff like this is what gives you an existential crisis, right? So if you have an experience with your friends, there's a great likelihood that not only in the moment somebody helps to prime you as to how to interpret that experience, but over time, you guys being a cohesive group of people who know each other that had a conversation about the experience, continued the priming based encoding that led you to collaboratively kind of create a group memory that had this specific sort of meaning amongst all of you. And that shared meaning gave it an emotional affect, and that emotional affect helped to reinforce it. So I would push you towards looking at some of Elizabeth Loftus' work, because I have so many people have these types of experiences and don't have an explanation for it. But when you really spend a lot of time looking at how memories are formed, the emotional and external components to forming memories and the research around it, you start to go, oh, well, okay, that kind of makes some sense then. It makes more sense that I was primed and my group helped reinforce that priming than it does that Jesus handed me a Frosty.
Yeah. And I'm familiar with the research that you're talking about. I didn't realize that was the person who did that.
Yeah,
I will absolutely look that person up. That's awesome. And I think we talked about this last week, but I don't really remember. So if I'm repeating myself, please forgive me. But there, a lot of what you said also has to do with, there's an anthropological thing that we call linguistic relativism, which is that the way you speak about the world, the words you choose to use, literally determine how you perceive and understand and interact with the world around you.
We just touched on that last week.
Okay, yeah.
Let's talk more about that.
But like I love
that's new to me, so I want to hear more about it.
It's like, for example, when we talk about when we talk about homosexuality, and you'll hear evangelical Christians say, "Oh, well, you're practicing homosexuality." When you say it that way, it sounds like it's something that you woke up today like, I'm going to give it a try, not like this is a part of my being. I'm not practicing being heterosexual at this moment. That's who I am. Well, and sorry,
I was going to say, no, it's also in which cultures a word might have, like, there might be multiple words for one meaning when it's something that's important to the culture. I don't know if you noticed this, but in English, we have a lot of words for money. Like a lot. We have buck, dollar, coins, shells. Like, I mean, we like clams. Like, that's a lot of clam. Like, it's just that's a lot of dough. The more you have, like, the more words you have relating to like a single substance, that's kind of shows the importance of that item around the culture that you're in. So like you can do this in multiple ways. Like if you there's an essence, and I'm going to bring them up. So the Maori people, the Maori people actually use the term Maori in their day-to-day life to describe a more meaningful item. So it's like it's almost like saying it's not the same as saying like a ritual or a holy object, but like he's like, yeah, you're Maori, you're tough, you're part of the people, and it's like it's. Yeah, so they use that instead of having multiple words for one thing, they have the word Maori meaning multiple things within that culture. So it's it shapes how they perceive things. If something's Maori, then that automatically means it's good, and they all know what they mean by that. And so if you were to tell a child over and over and over that this particular kind of activity, this particular kind of belief system, whatever, is Maori, then
that might shape them later on down the line to see this, to shape. And it's not just a thing about values and beliefs. It's also a thing about like when you read a news story and they talk about, the crazed gunman versus the lone wolf versus the terrorist versus the whatever. There's a reason why, not to get too political, but like in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, the people who were shot to death, who were murdered, were not allowed to be called victims, but they were allowed to be called rioters. That matters because it shapes the way that people are going to perceive this situation. When you look at, you hear a story about, this guy, you did perfectly when you talk about bumping into the car or smashing into the car. If I say I hit someone, or if I say I bumped into someone, or if I say I accidentally nudged someone, or if I say I fucking beat the shit out of somebody, this could all be the same thing potentially, but the way that we say it really matters to people, and it changes the way that they perceive reality, even perceive the exact same event from one moment to the next. So linguistic relativism is the term that I learned for this, and it goes super duper deep. And it matters not only for culture, but also for like politics and religion and everything else.
And it's the same thing when an African American guy is gunned down by a police officer, and news stations cover the story. They always show like the mugshot of the guy of the victim.
Yep.
As a way of saying like, oh, he was a criminal anyway, so really it's not that big of a deal, you guys.
He cut in lunch line back in 5th grade, so fuck that guy anyway, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not that big of a deal. Don't feel bad for him.
Yeah,
like
but if it was a white guy, it's always like a
who gunned him down without
some sporting event that they were doing.
Exactly. And so these are ways that we shape our perception of reality and can shape the public. Everybody can get on the same page of something based on how it's framed. So when you're talking about a group of kids who are hearing a voice, it's not very difficult to do that, especially if they're young, not to be too condescending, but especially if they're teenagers and they're still trying to figure shit out for themselves anyway. Very easy to do that. Oh my goodness. And so if we can do this with the general public, if we can do this with cultures and languages, you can absolutely convince some, 20 somethings that they heard a voice in a room. Totally. Absolutely. That can happen.
And the more time that passes, the easier it is to do that.
Absolutely.
The memory fades.
I was saying, you only remember
rebuilding it from scratch.
So it becomes more and more apocryphal as time goes on.
What you remember of the memory.
Yeah.
Yes.
If that makes sense. Like you're not remembering the event. You're remembering the last time you thought of that memory.
Yeah.
Well, or you're wholly reconstructing.
It's fun. This is fun.
I really want to get to this very generous super chat. Thank you. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name. But thank you so much for the very generous super chat.
Yeah.
Is it possible to be both autistic and bipolar?
Yes.
You spent $40 for me to tell you that I'm not qualified to answer that question, but I'm pretty sure.
It's 40 pesos. So
have you not read the DSM-5?
It's like $4.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, I have one, but I'm not. I was also like, I'm really cautious about giving any medical advice. I think so. Yeah. 99.9, but I don't want to lie to you and fuck you up more.
I'm not a clinician, and this is not clinical advice. And if you're speaking about yourself, then this is in no way to be considered a diagnosis, but those two can be comorbid. And if it's something that you think might be part of your pathology, then I would strongly recommend not asking YouTubers, but instead going and seeking professional mental health advice.
Yeah.
That's a much more professional way to say the bullshit that I said. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Got you. Got your back.
No, I like it.
And the thing is, even the realm of psychology, like that area of study is constantly evolving, like at a pretty rapid pace.
It's a relatively
like just like 20 years, like the DSM-4 labeled homosexuality as a mental illness, didn't it?
Actually, that came out in the 19th. I did a whole video on this, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say this is technically a relatively new science in that we are finally studying.
Like we're still discovering
mental illnesses as actual developmental or genetic differences within our own neurochemistry, which is really cool.
We're also having to go back and deconstruct all the racist history that goes along with this, because a lot of things like obstinate defiant disorder is actually just black kids exist, and like that we just classified that as a mental disorder because we didn't want to deal with.
Oh my god! Don't even get me started.
Yeah, it's a problem. So like now that we're having these huge crises of we can't reproduce any of these studies and make them work the same way twice. And we're actually finding out that most of this study that like we find all this information about psychology, these studies were done on college students in the psychology department or around. That's a pretty limited group compared to the whole ass population of the world, right?
Yeah.
Especially historically speaking, who can go to a university to be studied. So yeah, we're having a huge amount of problems now.
I worked at
going back and refixing this.
Hold on, Nat.
Sorry, there's a comment I want to talk about.
My wife and I met at a maximum security juvenile detention center here in Philadelphia, or here in Pennsylvania. I worked there for 3 years. She still works there. She's there now. And the majority of this is maximum security level 4. The absolute worst of the state come to us. And if you can't hack it there, you stay there till you're 18, and then you're transferred to adult prison. Pretty much every single juvenile we get is diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder.
Yeah,
and like 90% of the juveniles we get are from Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. So it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Is it? Yeah, that's always the thing. Is does it make more sense to say that all of these kids are just bad, or does it make more sense to say that hey, there's some bullshit system in place that's kind of making a bunch of very diverse children all lump into one pile?
And they're all raised in very territorial like upbringings. Like they're all, this is my block, and they're all like they all have like block wars.
Yeah, and there's also there's a lot to be said
running this block.
There's a lot to be said as well about
mentality. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. And I also have to let Nat say the things she was wanting to say a second ago.
No, I'm going to be changing the subject completely. So no, keep talking.
Okay, cool. Write it down so we don't lose it.
Yes.
There's also a lot to be said about poverty, because we find now, modern research is showing that things like food insecurity, things like high levels of stress when you're a child, these increased levels of cortisol in your brain, these stress hormones, they tend to atrophy the frontal lobe, this part up here, the thinky parts, the parts that allow you to do things like judging a situation based on consequences and deciding whether something's right or wrong. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex that Shannon was talking about a little while ago allows you to apply reason to morality and decide, yeah, I know I was raised this way, but is this really what I want to do? These parts of the brain literally decay when you are a young person who is absolutely bathed in stress hormones. And so you have a person now who, especially at this time of the life where this brain part of the region is still developing, and then also throughout the rest of their life, have notoriously bad decision-making skills because of this part of their body. And like, that's something that can be accounted for and can be corrected for. And you can make those decisions better later on if you understand that, and you can start to work on that and practice and build this up. But how many kids are learning practical neuroscience, especially in Pittsburgh and these places you're talking about? They're not, because education is based on property taxes, because we're a capitalist hellscape. And so we have this, this issue of kids who are born into this situation, suffer the consequences of the situation they're being born into, and then are also punished for the consequences of the situation that they were born into. Cue the whole rhetoric about like hell and being born into the wrong part of the world and not learning the gospel.
Right.
But yeah, it's there's a lot of modern research that shows
you need to give that whole ass lecture to BJJS. That's an inside joke for
What's
myself,
BJJS?
I don't know who that is.
The Bureau of Juvenile Justice.
Oh,
in my state,
it's frustrating.
Everybody fucking needs to hear that, because they're all like, what the fuck is oppositional defiance disorder? That's fucking bullshit. They just need to be slammed against the wall, blah, blah, blah. Like,
that's not going to improve anybody's
disposition.
Exactly. Because that's what we have. We're like, hey, these kids were clearly abused, and so now they're acting up. We should abuse them until they stop acting up.
And we know that, and they bring attention to that, but I don't know.
It's like having a stabbing victim, and you keep stabbing them until they're not stabbed anymore. Why do you think this is going to work?
Yeah, they'll stop bleeding eventually.
Exactly. Eventually they will. And it's the same thing in adults. You look at death row inmates, 25% of the people on death row, the adults on death row, have a history of concussive frontal lobe damage. And what's really cool about that is that you have, like, when you look at how the frontal lobe functions and how it actually processes with people, you take somebody with frontal lobe damage. You can do this game you do with children to see if they're good at like processing and decision making. You have 5 M&Ms in one hand and you have 1 M&M in another, and you hold them both out. And if they reach for the 1 M&M, you pull it back and you give them the 5, little reward. If they reach for the 5, you pull them back and you give them the 1. So you're punished for going for a bunch and you're rewarded for going for a little. And kids will figure this out pretty quick. Monkeys will figure this out pretty quick. You take a human, an adult human with frontal lobe damage, and you play this game with them, and the adult human with frontal lobe damage will go, I see the game here. I know what you're doing. You want me to reach for the 1, and then you'll get the 5. But if I reach for the 5, you're going to pull. And then they'll go for the 5 anyway. They can tell you what the game is. They can tell you everything, but they can't control that id. They just want it right now. And there are studies. There are really cool case studies. This one guy, one of my heroes academically, is a guy named Robert Sapolsky. He's a neurobiologist out of Stanford University. And he worked on a criminal case at one point where they had this guy who was just the worst of the worst. He was, on his 12th or 13th, serial rape, murder, mutilation. This guy's been chopping people up his whole life because when he was a little kid, he was in a car accident and it wiped out most of his frontal lobe. And his whole life, he's been doing these horrible things ever since. And they caught this guy because he captured a woman, chained her up in his basement, did all sorts of horrible things to her. And then he got bored and he had her license. And so he took her home, dropped her off and said, hey, I had a great time. Call me if you ever want to do it again. Just couldn't process how this was a bad thing. So they caught this guy. And one of the experiments that they did with him is they started reciting to him facts about his own case. They just changed the names. And they said, hey, there's this guy out there and he did this and this and this. And this dude would be like, oh my God, that's horrible. You should go get that guy. What a monster he is. And I said, okay, you did these things. Well, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I? I wanted to. Why would I not do that? And so this is the amazing demon that is the frontal lobe, the way that it does so many things and it has such complexity to it. And it just destroyed in impoverished children. And you have this lifelong history now of making fucking dumbass decisions that they can't help until they work on it. And they have to learn to do that.
And
Education.
People wonder why women love listening to true crime. It's because we want to understand the psychology behind this like maddening thing. Like
Absolutely.
Like it is not uncommon. Well, I'm going to say something that might be sexist. Feel free to call me out on it. But women tend to have and it's again, this is an uprising. This is an upbringing thing, less so a biologic thing. It might be biological, but what I know is like women are constantly told like to be emotional. Like you're kind of groomed into this ideology that you can cry and like men can't cry and that whole concept. But when that happens, that kind of gives us an our own interest into psychology, or at least an intriguing thought so that we know why do you feel this way? What's causing this, instead of just going out and doing something like blindly.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
really
I think it has a lot to do with women in our society having the license to feel feelings.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, I didn't want to say it was like a.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And I want to.
It does separate the sexes in that sense. Go ahead.
It does. And I want to couch that as well. But when I say given the license, I do also understand that this is also something that's used against you quite frequently. Yes. And so I don't want to say this is some great boon on your existence. No. It is mental health wise, it is a blessing. But as far as stigma is concerned, I also understand it's a curse.
Yeah, it's a back and forth thing.
Also, one more quick thing. Whenever Ricky comes back, we should finish a conversation that we weren't having and just see how much we can throw him off.
No, start. How about we just start? I was going to say,
sure.
Pick a topic.
Just the second he gets in here, I'm going to start talking about something.
Yeah. No, it's fine. No,
just
cool.
Be ready for that.
I can't believe his TikTok account got taken down. Has he seen that yet?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
That's what we should say as soon as he gets.
Absolutely.
We can get him to just actually have a heart attack when he walks
perfect. I was going to go weirder. I was going to talk about cream corn and Batman suits and shit. I was going to go real strange with it. That's
Why
great.
Is that weird? Is that weird? I'm sorry, I didn't remember that.
Amongst us, I don't think that's a weird thing.
So I stabbed the fucker and I took his mints. Welcome back, Ricky. Anyways.
Oh yeah, so we definitely need to take you're gonna have to share your mugshot with us at some point because it's great.
Mugshot. Did you get arrested? I'm missing. Oh, or you tricked me and I'm right here.
It's like
you got me.
You just gotta
you got me.
Catch it on. I'm bad though. Like I do this all the time with. So
you had a way you wanted to change the conversation. What do you have?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
So what I was talking about earlier, and we can totally like jump back to it afterwards. Somebody mentioned the dancing plague, and I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about when I say the dancing plague in France?
I
absolutely
no idea.
18. Oh my God. So there is, and it didn't just happen in France. It also happened in Strasbourg. It happened in a few places in Europe. We're going to say that next plague. But the idea was that there was this plague of, they think it was either food poisoning or perhaps a mental stress of like a poor time in history or something was going on. And these people. It
was in Strasbourg.
Awesome. Yes. Sorry. Just proud of myself for remembering.
What is it? God damn
it. But anyway, so these people, and it didn't just like happen all at once. It's like there was like this one person that started dancing and they just didn't stop. And the next person started dancing and they didn't stop. And then it just became a group thing and they kept dancing. And then there were fatalities from it. And that's the freak out. So like people would dance for like days on end until they would just collapse from exhaustion. And it was, it's a really interesting case study. One I haven't dived into very deeply, but it was so fascinating.
It spread for miles, if I remember correctly. Yes. There were several towns over. People were like, "Oh shit! Oh shit! I got it, you guys! Oh my god!" And then everybody around them, like, "No! The funniest shit.
Yeah, it was like a mass hysteria thing, which is why I wanted to bring it up back when you were like, "Oh yeah, these experiences of like seeing God and all that." And then there was a comment down here. It was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Yes," and then Ricky was like, "Hold on," I was like, "Fuck."
See, now my mind's going to like what could get your motor center to do something like that, and it couldn't have been something that was like airborne that was caught, which means that it was some form of mass.
They were just convinced that it could happen.
Hysteria, like they were just So it was this sort of like placebo effect that somehow was wrapped in crowd conformity and. Some sort of fear. And if you had this fear of it, then your acetylcholine levels would have spiked, which would have given you more cortisol, which would have
they're saying
made you less reasonable.
Turned into mass hysteria. So
you're on the right track. I love that.
So my mind's going to like not just that's weird and interesting, but like what makes your brain do something like that.
Here's another thing that we can like play with. That's actually a modern day.
I'm not even sure if I'm done with this one. I'm trying to figure out. Okay, go
ahead. There's also this thing. So like this dancing disease, as far as we know, we haven't seen it since. Like this was like a one-time thing that just happened in human history, and it was well documented because it did happen in a wide area.
Okay.
But we've also noticed, and this is pretty limited to, I want to say, the higher altitudes of Asia. And I think they've had like a few cases in Africa as well. But there's a laughing disease that women get specifically. And I'm trying to think of the name of it. I can't. I have to Google it again. But this laughing disease is something that would happen, and they'll laugh for days. I mean, they won't die from it, but it's just one of those weird things. And a lot of times the women will go and separate themselves from society at the time. Yeah. So anyway, Forrest, your fucking criminal record is out.
I want to see the mugshot like so bad.
Well, it only happened once is the thing. It only happened. Well, in fairness, it happened 3 times, but it was only one event.
But you only got arrested once?
Wait, what did I miss?
Well, the arrest happened 3 times, but like it was the one event that led to it. Well, the thing is, the son of a bitch. Okay, so I never got the damn suit back. Okay, he took the bat suit and left with it.
That's not okay.
So I have to get vengeance because you're not going to get it. So I'm standing there, fucking ankle deep in cream corn at this point. Right, is the problem. I'm not gonna fucking get that on my carpet. And this son of a bitch has my shit. So I'm not gonna let it slide.
I would have killed him.
And so it ended up being this, like, it wasn't technically double jeopardy because it was 3 separate instances, but it was just, you know what I mean? It was one total event that kind of spilled over.
Why would he why would he open the cans of cream corn and throw them at you? Like, why not just throw the corn?
The idea was it was supposed to be like an emotional thing, like a shameful thing. It was kind of like that whole thing where they dump cinnamon on women.
Honestly, ridiculous.
It was supposed to be embarrassing, but at the end of the day, it was fucking delicious. And so, like, I'm over here having a ball. He's being a douchebag, and then it turns out to be no fun for everybody.
Yeah, but he distracted you long enough to take the suit, though. So he kind of.
Do y'all have any idea how confused I am right now? I came into a bat suit, a conviction record, and cream corn. I had to run upstairs to deal with a crying child, and I came back to that. I fucking missed something.
We're talking about how I got this cell phone, man.
I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch the show for context. I'm so lost.
Poor Ricky.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. We'll move.
Don't mind me. Keep going.
No, we were done. We were basically done.
We're good.
Actually,
it's embarrassing stories.
It's chat that I want to talk about. We have a super chat. Yes. I would love to.
Yeah, we got a super chat.
And I can send you. Okay, so first off, the fungus, the zombie fungus that you guys are talking about. I'll read it. Could the zombie ant fungus affect humans, or the one that affects mice by making them less afraid of cats, or does it already? Well, I don't know about the effect of humans, but I can tell you a lot about the fungus, and I can talk to you a lot about these different zombie fungi that are super interesting.
I got the cat and mouse one when you're done. You go first.
You got the cat and mouse one? Okay. So when I was down in Louisiana, one of the things I kept coming across, and my crew were getting mad at me for this. I had to like document what mushrooms were in the area that was gonna, like, it was just one of those things that was just added on for the environmental phase 1, survey. So I was taking pictures of all these mushrooms, and then my friend came across a branch that had a wasp on it and freaked out, and she ran away. And I went over to the wasp, and there were vines or little things, creepy crawlies coming out of it. And I have some really great pictures that I can actually send to Ricky, and if he wants to pop them on here. But
sure.
Yeah. See if I can find these little fuckers. But so this is a type of fungus that will actually, that when the wasp goes and eats this bug that already has the fungus on it, the fungus will then get the wasp to land on a branch in a very openly and easily accessible location. And the wasp will be alive as the mushroom grows within it, and then comes out of every single one of its little crevices, and then emits a smell that'll make that other bug come eat a little bit of that fungus. That bug will be fine, but because it's like one of the main prey of the wasp, like a wasp will come around, grab it, and the cycle will repeat. The ant one that he's talking about with this, it's more of a suicide fungus rather than a zombie fungus, in that the ant will crawl up a stalk of a leaf or like grass or clover, and it will sit right on the edge of it until a rabbit eats it. Because it's eating the grass. Then it will reproduce in the brain of the rabbit. The rabbit will then poop. And the ants will eat the poop. And then there will be ants on more of the stalk. So there's a really, really interesting parasitic mind fuckery that goes into these fungi. And I fucking love them. I'm gonna let Forrest talk so I can find this thing, because if I'm just sitting here scrolling, my ADHD will just wander off. So Forrest, talk about
the mushrooms. Yeah, the fungi are called cordyceps, and they what's really cool, especially in the ant one, is really interesting. When the ants are infected with this, they tend to kind of stagger around drunk and be kind of weird, and the other ants will recognize that, and they'll grab that ant and haul them as far away as possible from their colony, so that it dies over there and doesn't risk spreading this back. Really cool trick they picked up. The other one you talked about was the cat and mouse thing. That's called toxoplasma. And it is a protist, actually, if I remember correctly. And its life cycle is that it gets into a rat or a mouse, and the cat eats the mouse, and then it goes out of the cat's butt and then into the soil, and then a mouse eats the cat poop and then gets reinfected, and the cat and the rat over and over and over like this. What's cool about it is that the rat goes scurrying around in the cat poop and gets infected by this thing. and then it has to go get eaten by the cat. And what's that all about? The way it controls the mind, we found out, is it actually makes mice sexually attracted to the smell of cat urine, and that's why it goes over there and finds cats to get eaten by.
Yeah.
And what's even cooler about that?
No.
What's even cooler about that one actually can infect humans. Cordyceps can't, as far as
that's why pregnant women can't do cat litter.
Exactly.
Right.
Pregnant women aren't allowed to clean out cat boxes because toxoplasma can infect that, and it will destroy your fetus. It'll make them blind, brain damaged, or just dead in general. And men who have been studied who get toxoplasmosis, which is the condition of having this, it infects the brain, and they tend to take more stupid, unnecessary risks. And there have been studies there where we see motor vehicle accidents in men, just stupid, reckless driving when they're infected with toxoplasmosis, or when they have toxoplasmosis infected with toxoplasma. The incidence of motor vehicle accidents goes up like 500%. Like they are just terrible, stupid drivers taking unnecessary risks because they have this bug in their brain. And that's why kids who grow up in gross, cat shit houses are going to speed at 1,000,000 miles an hour down the highway, like I did when I grew up in a gross cat shit house and did that shit as a child. So
that's not an excuse to have a lead foot, in my opinion, because I didn't grow up in a gross house, and I definitely have a lead foot.
Does it affect dopamine levels? Like,
I'm honestly not sure what the mechanism is. All I remember is that there's a strong core, because I remember learning about it in animal parasitology when I was in my undergrad.
It would make sense, like that in mice, you're able to, I guess, drive them a little bit more because they don't really have much in the way of cortices to reason about things. So they're a little bit more driven by instinct.
Yeah.
Like just automatically. So sorry, when people talk about this stuff, I want to actually try to figure it out.
Yeah.
So these are actually my photos that I took in Kasachi. So
beautiful.
I was like, I'm giving myself credit on this because I think they're cool as shit.
That is cool.
Do the one that has it. There's one that's a little closer up, but you can actually see that the mycelium is coming out of the actual exoskeleton where it meets and overlaps itself. So it's only the crevices, it's not actually coming through. But yeah, every joint that is there is where it's coming out, and it's so neat.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's fucking cool, and it's gross, but it's so cool, and I love it. And like I found like 3 of these over a 9-month period while I was there, and I was so happy when I did. Like I would like my coworkers would be like, I don't know, about 50 to 100 meters away from me, and I would see it, and I would like go, and they always thought I was like something bad was happening. I was like, I found another one.
That's exciting. That's cool.
Like, I'd be like on the walkie-talkie, disregard that.
If rat poop did end up in your food, that's not a risk of toxoplasma. That's cat poop that you get toxoplasma from. Rat poop, you're going to be at risk of hantavirus, which is going to give you renal failure, but not going to hurt your brain. Yeah, it's gonna be a totally different situation.
You'll just shit yourself to death. Don't worry.
There's another parasite that does that one. Entamoeba histolytica is one of my favorite parasites because it causes amoebic dysentery. One of them. You have a
list. I need a top 10 list of Forrest's favorite parasites.
If you guys want to talk about my favorite parasites, I'll go down them, man. They're so cool.
Talk about the parasites.
Entamoeba histolytica is one of my favorite parasites because it causes amoebic dysentery, and you literally do poop yourself to death. Yes. You don't die from diarrhea like you do with like Giardia lambia, which is another parasite that causes diarrhea. That is one of my top 3 favorite parasites. It's so fucking cute. Giardia lambia. Look it up and put them on the screen. Giardia lambia. They look like little stingrays, and they get inside your butthole. And they're great. They just stick to the inside of your colon, and they make you have diarrhea, and they're harmless otherwise. They're great.
There they are.
And so, anyway, fucking Entamoeba histolytica, it causes amoebic dysentery, so you don't actually die from dehydration like you normally would from dysentery. You poop so hard and so much that your heart gives out, and that's how you die.
It's not like a nice natural leak. It's like hard.
I don't know how to feel about you anymore, Forrest. I'm feeling a lot of things at once right now. And I don't know
dude, they're so cool.
I just want to say that I tried to look this up, and I spelled it so bad it gave me a bunch of.
I'm putting in the chat for everybody else.
I just sent it to you on Discord. Just put up the one I sent.
I got it. But initially,
Giardia
like,
lambida. I think that's
it
how
was
you
like,
spell
did
it.
you mean Guardians of the Galaxy?
No.
I was like, no, that's
They
not.
get inside your
way off
butthole.
the rails.
That's how bad I
Way.
spelled it.
It's okay. I'm used to spelling.
Here we go, though. Incoming.
Yeah, interesting name. So yeah, this little critter.
Is this your man?
Yeah.
Oh.
So the one on the left side, that's its actual like live form, the trophozoite. The one on the right is called a cyst. That's when it bunges up into a little dehydrated ball that can then rehydrate later. And that's how you catch it, is it insists when it comes out of you, and then you get fecal matter on your hands, in the water, in your food, whatever, and
Well, I
you just
insist
re-ingest
that you
someone
wash
else's
your
food.
hands.
Yeah,
so
wash your hands,
I insist
motherfuckers.
that-
Exactly. No, that actually is the treatment for it, is wash your hands. It gets out of your body naturally anyway, and it'll stop the cycle. But if you can find a different picture, I encourage you to, because they're so fucking cute.
I
dude.
sent
If
you one
find
with you that's like
anything
a little red
purple-
one.
They're cute?
It's cute.
Wait,
Yeah,
what?
if you can find pictures that are like kind of
Oh,
like a pinkish purple hue,
Yeah.
that means that they're gram stained, and you can really get a good image of them. They look like little stingrays with little suction cup faces, and
Is that
they have these little
thing?
tentacles and they have little eye spots. They're
I think I have
adorable, yo.
They're so
Yeah.
cute.
I might.
That's seriously absolutely one of my favorite parasites. Top three.
It's a little
Bar
cute
none.
little red one that has good staining on it. You should see it.
Them and Demodex folicarum. Demodex are
Folicarum
mites.
is nice.
Yes.
Is that about it?
That's an okay one. Like if I can, I'll
I
make
like
a video
how
about it
you're
on a TikTok or
grading
something later.
parasite pictures. For
I
now,
mean,
it's
there are some better ones.
Well, like this is
It's
like
not
some
my
sort of
favorite
a
picture of that shit parasite.
There could be better. Hold on, you just give me 5 seconds. I'll find you a good one. But like, there's another one. Demodex are mites. Giardia lambia. So Demodex are mites that live in your eyelashes, and they're you are 100% guaranteed to get them at some point in your life if you live past the age of 60. And they're adorable. They look like water bears with big long butts.
I love tardigrades.
They are.
Yes,
they
yes,
really
yes.
are tardigrades.
Tardigrades, yeah.
They're
fucking
great, dude.
indestructible.
Yes.
They can live
They're
in
so
space.
cute.
They're my favorite thing in the world.
For 2
Like,
weeks, yeah.
They're so fucking cute.
Yeah, dog. Let's see if I can.
And also, I'm a
I'll
Star
use this
Trek
one.
fan, and Star Trek Discovery basically like hijacked tardigrades in order for the Spore Network. Anyway, whatever. Nerd alert.
Nerd alert.
But it made me super happy because they look like little tardigrades.
There we go. I just sent you a website which you can scroll through if you so choose. And you can see the life history of them, and you can see the epidemiology of them. If you go into the wastewater treatment and prevention tab, you can see a really good gram stain of one. And they've got a little micrograph image of one on the side here as well.
That one is good. That one's pretty good. That's cute. They do have cute. They look like fucking cartoons. Let's be
They're
honest.
adorable, dude. They're
so
adorable
adorable.
creatures.
You're gonna die, but they're so cute.
And then you gotta have this guy here. Oh, what's another horrible? Can we put horrifying pictures on the screen, or should we not?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yo,
Trigger
okay.
warning
I'm
now,
gonna send
folks.
you.
It
I'm
might
gonna send
be-
you my other favorite one, Leishmania
Your mother's favorite one?
brasiliensis.
I'm just trying to. I think you sent me a video. Did you send me a video?
Did I? No.
No, there is a video in there, but you don't have to see that. Okay, I'm gonna send you 2 pictures. And you're
I
gonna
have so many
love
mushrooms
them
in here.
both. You're gonna
Sorry,
love
I'm just like
both of
going.
these.
I'm going through all my.
Okay, so you'll know the one not to put up first. Cutaneous leishmaniasis is the condition that it
That's
causes.
the one I'm going to put up. Wait, fuck around and find out.
My pacemaker's going off again.
There's one.
the back.
Okay, so I've got 2 images here that I'm going to send to you, and you can go away. No, go away. Fuck off. All right, so this is a picture of Leishmania brasiliensis. Go ahead and put this up on the screen. I just emailed it to you at that same thing. This is called Leishmania brasiliensis, and it's a trophozoite flagellate, if I remember correctly. They are smaller than red blood cells. Okay, they're tiny, tiny little dudes. And in fact, the first time I ever saw a blood smear of them, I didn't know where they were. I was like, this is just a blood smear. It just looks like regular blood cells. And then I noticed it looked a little staticky. And I zoomed in a little bit, and there's 10 billion of them for every blood cell. They're amazing. And they get into your body. It's called chicle pickers disease is what they call it, because the people down in Brazil that are picking the chicle off of the trees to make chewing gum, they'll get bitten by a sand flea, and they'll get this into their body. And what's crazy about it is that you won't know that you have it for like 10 to 15 years until all of the sudden you get mucocutaneous leishmaniasis, which looks like this. I just sent you the next picture. It's when the bottom half of your fucking face starts rotting off. It's crazy.
Warning, this is a trigger warning for anyone that finds things gross.
If you value
look
your
away
eyes.
now.
Yeah,
if you
don't look
want
at
a
this.
nightmare, look away now, okay?
Yeah, go on back there. Don't show my email address. That's mucocutaneous leishmaniasis there. Yeah, that's what it causes. How crazy is that? That's caused by those tiny little dudes, those tiny little guys.
Yeah, don't make people stare at it for too long. They're going to freak out and be like, this is a demon spawn!
Fuck that.
So that's Leishmania brasiliensis. And there are several other species of Leishmania that do different things. That's the worst one, in my opinion. Yeah. There's other ones that does like visceral leishmaniasis and dermal leishmaniasis. You can get Kala-Azar disease, which is if you are lucky enough to survive one of those, then you have these horrible bumps all over your body for the rest of your life. It's wild, dude. And that is my number 2 favorite parasite.
I don't know if
I like how like I bring in, it's like, we'll talk about the parasites of fungi, and then we're like, no, we're just gonna talk about parasites in general. Like bring in the bacteriums, like bring in the viruses.
I love studying them because they're so cool and they're horrifying. And what I love the most about them is that, like, when you really, because life is my jam. I love learning what life is and what it does. And when you learn about these horrific things, you have to grapple with the fact that their life is just as special as yours. They're just doing their thing. They're not doing what they don't want to hurt you. That's just how they live. That's their job. That's their whole business. That's their niche. And that matters just as much as anything else. And it makes you feel incredibly special and incredibly not special at the same time. And I love that about science.
Kip's heading out. But it's, well, when you study parasites, you really get to see where there are, I don't want to say where there are gaps in evolution, but where there are niches in evolution that were unfilled. And like, it's just these creatures were able to adapt just to fit these little niches. I like to call them evolutionary loopholes, because because there's nothing there right now. And so they're like, we find a little loophole, and then they stick, and it stays because nothing else is going to take that spot. Nothing else is going, and if it does, even cooler, also probably more deadly, but it'll just get, like, it'll get better and worse in so many ways.
That's called adaptive radiation, by the way, when they find little niches that aren't quite filled yet. And then sometimes they can take a niche and they can break it up even further. And that's called niche partitioning. And that's one of my favorite evolutionary processes.
Do you have a list of top 5 favorite evolutionary processes?
Do you really want to ask? Because the answer is yes, and I'll go into it.
I already know the answer is yes. I've deduced that already.
If you have 30 more minutes, I'll talk about fucking disruptive selection, dude.
Oh my
awesome.
God! Yes! Oh. Disruptive selection is definitely one of mine too.
I have to leave in 7 minutes, but I will listen as I'm going to sleep.
You have to leave in 7 minutes? Is that a real?
No, it is. It's almost 11:30 p.m. and I have to work in the morning, and it's my first day of homeschooling with my son tomorrow because of COVID. Oh. So I've got to both work and homeschool.
I did that all this past week.
Yeah, it's great.
My two youngest.
Working a full-time job from home and homeschooling full-time from home is really enjoyable.
I can't imagine. I'm sorry I wouldn't have rambled so long if I had known.
No, you're no. I was enjoying listening to all of your parasite lists. I learned some stuff I wouldn't have learned otherwise.
I'm going to say, Correa has a good idea. It's like, Shannon, before you go, if you want to plug yourself again as far as like where people can find you, and then also if anyone has any questions for her before she heads out, now's the time to throw them out there.
Or if you had anything you wanted to add to the conversation.
I don't have anything to add about parasites. I don't know a lot about them. I learned more than I have to add.
We never got into the anterior cingulate gyrus, Shannon. That was the whole thing.
I know.
We can get into it now, though.
We good. We could talk about the hippocampus as well. I've got all kinds of things to say about the hippocampus.
You're all into
and
that
the
memory
thalamus
game.
and all of the different nuclei of the thalamus. We could talk about that.
What's interesting about memory that I've learned in recent years is that memory is stored in very random parts of the brain, from what I understand. And when you're trying to recall something, your brain brings up this part, but the subsequent portion of that memory is way over here. So it has to travel and like cross all these other memories to get to that point. So it kind of mixes them together. Does that make sense?
I wonder if that has something to do with, like, if you're talking like sensory memory, like where it has to go from the hippocampus over and like register with the somatosensory cortex up here to tell you this is what I felt. Is that what you mean?
Kind of like you recall a memory, but the details aren't exactly accurate because you have to
memories are stored.
You have to cross through other memories to get to that point, because they're not like what I did in the 6th grade is over here. What I did in the 7th grade is over here. Well, it's not like that. It's all over the place. So if you're trying to recall a memory from the 6th grade, you have to jump to all these different synapses in your brain, and sometimes other memories can sort of like interject themselves into them. I don't know if I'm
as far as I know, it is all over the place, but in one specific place. So like there's one region that does that, but it's fucked up all in that region. It wouldn't be all over the brain total, unless, like I said, I think there might be something there when you're talking about like working memory of like an experience. And then of course there's always smells, because smells, Shannon mentioned a place called the thalamus, which is basically like the central processing hub of the brain. All these different sensory inputs go to the thalamus and then get spread out. But olfaction, your olfactory bulbs in your nose, skip that. They go straight down the middle of your brain and go straight into the hippocampus and the amygdala. And so they immediately register memory and emotion and things like this. They don't have to go into this processing center first. And that's why smell is such a potent reminder of where we blah, blah, blah. And there's a whole evolutionary reason for that. But yeah, I don't know, man. Shannon probably knows way more about that than I do, though.
Well, memories are stored in nodes.
Nodes.
There's a book that you might be interested in called The Forgetting Machine. That's really interesting. That talks all about memory encoding and how it operates. Another book that might be interesting, since I can't really get into memory encoding in 3 minutes, is a book called Brain Bugs. Brain Bugs is a really, really good book that goes into memory encoding in a couple of the chapters. The hippocampus, which we mentioned, doesn't. A lot of people think it stores memories. It doesn't. It just helps with memory encoding. There's not really one central location that stores memories. There's places we know memories aren't. Mostly we think they're in the like kind of mid portion of the cortices, and they tend to be encoded together. There's something they did a study that's actually pretty interesting, where they were doing recall to see which nodes would be consistently activated, and they figured out that memories are encoded in neuronal activity, and that they can consistently present you with an image, for example, that will activate a neuron series that's consistent and overlapping, which tells you that memories are interconnected. So memories, you can't just recall them like a filing cabinet. They're connected to likely perception and recall of perception. And they actually called it the Jennifer Aniston neuron, which is kind of cool. They named it the Jennifer Aniston neuron because
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because they were consistently presenting pictures of Jennifer Aniston in different contexts, and were and the same neuron nodes were activating in all instances, because they had a new technology where they were able to see that through MRI. And also when they were presenting things that were affiliated with Jennifer Aniston, you could see tangential nodes being activated, which tells you that things that are affiliated tend to be coded in similar areas, which is why sometimes you can have recall affect, where you are attempting to recall something else, but you can recall 15 similar things, but not the thing that you want to recall, because they're all encoded together. So those books are interesting to read if you want to learn a little bit more about it. And that's my like brief. I did it in under 2 minutes, synopsis before I have to go, and then I can listen to your cool evolution stuff while I'm getting myself ready to go to bed. And I'm really sorry that I didn't have more than an hour and a half. Forrest, it was an absolute delight to meet you, and I hope that we get to talk
again.
Pleasure is all
mine.
Sometime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. Seriously.
Cool. Well, not really. I mean, I'm I'm mostly okay, but it was. I love talking about brains and listening to parasite stuff.
Have Ricky give you my email and everything, so you can get in contact.
Cool. I think you and I follow each other on Twitter, but I'm probably on Twitter. I'm terminally on Twitter, unfortunately. So that's.
I rarely remember I have one, but I'll find it there too.
Good.
Yeah, same.
Keep yourself like that. Stay like that. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, mine's easy. It's elevatethediscourse@outlook.com. And it's public, so anybody can email me. Cool. And Nat, it was nice to meet you too.
It's nice to finally get to chat.
yes, exactly. And Rick, fuck you. Anyway, see you later. Okay. Have a good night.
Bye. I love her.
We like to have fun here.
Yeah.
She didn't mean it. She didn't.
Yeah, she did. I feel like we need to explain something that happened earlier.
What?
Oh, you mean with the cream corn and the bat suit and the
Ricky's still trying to figure it out.
Going for a long time. It's a long story.
We don't got to go back into it. I'll go back and watch what I missed.
He's gonna be so confused.
We can move on. I'm not gonna make y'all repeat all that live.
Anyway,
that is my cross to bear.
It's your cross to bear. Oh gosh.
Yeah, just imagine my surprise when I came in, and then y'all are talking about mugshots and bat suits and cream corn. I was like, what the fuck just happened?
I mean, a lot happened.
Just getting to know each other.
To be honest, a lot happened.
Yeah, apparently in intimate detail.
Now, I don't know if were you there to talk about the dancing disease or the dancing hysteria prior to?
I don't think he was. No,
I wasn't here for that. But you mean? Did y'all have that conversation while I was gone?
Yeah,
we had a lot of
talking about stuff while you were gone. There was other.
I covered the mysteries of the universe.
I did not hear of that, but I am familiar with that.
Okay, you are familiar with it. Okay, do tell. What are you familiar with as far as like the dancing hysteria?
Maybe you know something we don't.
Disco.
Yeah, no, it was a condition where a group of people started dancing pretty much, and people literally dance themselves to death.
Yeah, he knows about it.
Yeah,
from
that was what we were talking about. Yeah,
and throughout Europe.
Was that
we did discuss 1600s,
1800s?
It was in the 1500s, 1518.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to see if you knew about it because I want to see if because some people they were like, oh, then the devil.
Yeah, it was literally a pandemic where people danced themselves to death, and then of course the Catholic Church was like, "This is the work of the devil."
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you had to talk about it.
Yeah.
Little did they realize it was a great case study in how the Catholic Church works too. The whole mass hysteria thing and feeling something that everybody else thinks they feel.
Well, what was that?
Well, before you say what was anything, can you look backstage? Because I feel like we might have a surprise.
There's nothing backstage.
Morgan.
Should there be something backstage?
I sent him the link. I don't know if he's.
Are we supposed to be having a special guest?
Yeah. I don't know. We didn't have to have him. I just.
Well, he is welcome.
Always. I just figured it'd be fun to throw in another archeologist.
I make new friends. I don't know this guy either. That sounds awesome.
So this is if he signs in. I don't know if he's backstage because he mentioned they just commented. It's like sounds like the perfect time to rejoin a conversation.
Yeah. But I remember a study I learned in one of my psychology courses is where it was like a movement is not determined by the first person to start it. It's determined by the first person to follow it. So, for example, there was a study where like a guy, there was a beach full of people and a guy just started dancing. And
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yes. I figured this is a pretty popular study. This guy just started dancing and he looked like an absolute idiot to everybody. Mm-hmm. That is until a second person joined him. He was like, oh, fuck it. And he started joining. And like immediately after that, the rest of the beach joined. So it wasn't the first person. The first person didn't have anything to do with it, really. It was the second person who made it seem socially acceptable.
And then you get like that exponential growth. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
popularity. It's a thing.
Yeah. There he is.
Oh!
Good timing.
I did that on purpose.
Forrest, this is Morgan. Morgan Forrest.
Hey, Morgan.
Hey, how goes?
You came in looking cool as shit, dude.
Yeah, that was quite an entrance.
I'm impressed, but Morgan is Archaeo Wolf on TikTok, which is he has been dubbed. Was it the CEO of archaeology?
I did not come up with that, but
I
yeah,
know you didn't. Someone else.
You feel
did.
free to own that.
Well, I guess I will.
But yeah, so he
what side of archaeology are you in? I was watching Nat's thing earlier about how Indiana Jones is a terrible archaeologist, and I wanted to write some shit about his dumbass cultural historian piece of shit. Like, are you processionalist, post-processionalist? Where are you at? What's your jam?
You know, my inspiration to actually become an archaeologist was Daniel Jackson.
Daniel.
All right.
Stargate.
So, I mean, if you want to break it down, he was terrible, that Indiana Jones. But
it's okay, Shannon. We love you. We'll talk to you later.
We got to do this more.
Yes. Again next week.
I'll just come and raid your fucking show all the time.
If you ever want to jump in, kind of like Morgan did just now, if you ever want to just like, hey, let me jump in, like, okay.
Fuck yeah.
I'm not officially a host on the show at all. Like, there's no expectation. I've been on like 8 or 9 shows, it feels like.
I drag your ass in here all the time because I want your opinion. Yeah. It's like, Morgan, I need to talk, because can you remember the name of the laughing disease that I was talking about earlier? Because I think you know about it.
I've only ever heard it called laughing hysteria or the laughing disease. I didn't know it had official name.
I thought it had it was Lockie or something. But
it'd be news to me.
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome.
I guess
that sounds official.
I just made that up.
Really it's not right.
I've just heard it as the laughing disease too. I don't know what it would be officially.
When Ricky publishes Stockholm syndrome, make us like second authors, like on that paper.
we need the publicity. Yeah, whenever.
Deal.
Also, Forrest, when you go and start publishing your stuff, let me know if there's, like, before you publish, let me see if there's anything I can do to help you with some of your calculations, sir.
I'm publishing at the end of this year, actually, so I'll definitely send you if you want to look over my stuff. Because right now all I've got out there is like an abstract or something from the Oklahoma Academy of Science.
That's
like,
fine.
just because I did some
figured
presentations.
If you have any, like, I mean, you're talking about paleoclimatology, so it's like I compared some charts with someone. It's like,
I'm done with it. What's that?
What are you publishing on?
I'm just publishing my thesis. I'm just gonna break it up into several individual papers, and then I'm also going to, the lab that I work in is gonna use my data to go forward. So I'll be second author on a bunch of other crap from here on out. But I'm fucking done. I'm done with academia after this. And what sucks is that I really my dream is just to go to school for the rest of my life. I would love nothing more, but I have to also do the internet for a living, and so I can't. But I am so stressed out. I'm in the last part of this master's. I'm just writing. I'm working like crazy. I'm not getting anything done. I'm trying to get on my video. I'm so stressed. And whose dumbass is up at 3 o'clock in the morning looking up other master's degrees that are offered by my university that I want to do? And I'm like, this would only take me another year, so I could just do this one too. I could just knock it out real quick. Well, if I went to England, then I could probably do a PhD in like 3 years instead of 5, so I could probably do that too. I need to shut the fuck up.
Just finish it.
I don't like looking in a mirror.
I'm sitting here just like beating my head against the wall, not wanting to do anything else, and still like what I could do more though, but I could also do more.
Yeah.
Looking in the mirror, it really is.
It's hard, bro.
We have a brain question. Oh, and I'm so glad that Morgan's here for this. We have a brain question. It's directed for Forrest.
What is it?
It says it's a brain question for Forrest. I've heard that Neanderthals had larger brains than current humans, and that our brains continue to shrink. A, is that true? And B, if so, why?
Part A is true, part B is not. So Neanderthals did have bigger brains than Homo sapiens. Couple of things that I'm going to throw at you. First of all, you said current humans, good job, because Neanderthals were humans. Anything in the genus Homo is a human. Second of all, yes, they did have bigger brains. That doesn't mean what you think it means, probably, because like Homo erectus had a brain that was about 2/3 the size of our brain. They also almost certainly had language, and they could have done a lot of this. And they were like the most successful human species. They lived for like 2 million goddamn years. So like they were amazing, and they could have very well kept up with us in a lot of different things. They just had a weirdly shaped head with an occipital bun. But and then also the idea of human heads or human brain shrinking, the opposite is actually true because of modern medicine, specifically cesarean sections. You no longer have to fit a watermelon out of a cervix the size of a quarter. And so our heads are actually getting bigger. We're seeing an evolutionary trend where our heads are getting bigger and bigger over time. And we're also getting taller and taller because we have access to better nutrition all throughout the course of our lives. And that's why you have humans like me. I'm 6'2", and you could land a fucking aircraft on my forehead. And so like that's what you got this to go.
Forehead gang unite.
The peak of evolution. Yeah.
I still remain the tallest. I'm gonna take that small trophy and just it'll be mine.
Morgan is still the tallest. He is still the bear.
I'm still the shortest of every guest I've pretty much ever had.
No, not
and
every
I see,
even though I am statistically average, I am fucking 6'9", 69 inches.
We always get into this whole height thing. He hates the fact that I'm taller than him. It just is what it is.
I don't hate it. It's just weird.
It's some bigger shoes,
It's just weird.
Everybody's taller than me.
Forrest, just for
And I'm not short. I'm
I'm
average.
6 feet tall.
oh, that's excellent. Yeah.
I'm a rather tall human, so at least for the female side of things. So.
Yes. That's excellent. And even that, like you could dig into you talk about like bigger brains and things like that. Like so there's a bunch of idiots who like to say, women have smaller brains and blah, blah, blah. Humans are slightly sexually dimorphic. Women tend to be smaller, and so their heads are smaller, and so their brains are a little bit shaped. But you notice that we don't have a major intelligence difference there. And so like that's a good indication, like brain size. And there's also
you don't know me that well.
But there are people who have like
difference.
If anything, you're smarter than me, I guarantee.
No,
but there's people who have half their brains removed due to damage in their youth, and they live totally normal, perfectly well functional lives. So like that's a whole thing. You can live with half a brain and you wouldn't even notice the difference. So brain size doesn't really mean what you think it does. It's more about the structures and what the structures do. And so like the brain evolved from the inside out. You have this really simple lizard brain in the middle, and then it kind of goes outward from there. And on the outside, you have this cortex, which is the really human parts of it. You know what I mean? That's what's important. Not nearly as much size as you think it is.
I was like, the shape also makes massive differences as well. So like,
yes,
like
the texture.
Yeah, texture.
I don't know if that's the appropriate term to use.
The wrinkliness, the amount of noodles,
the grooves. Yeah.
I went to school with a kid who had half his brain removed when he was less than a year old.
Yeah, that's when it's common, is when you have brain damage in little children. Yeah,
and it was one of the things where he always got to wear a hat because his skull actually was a little dished on that side as a result of, I'm assuming, the actual surgery. But if you didn't know his history, you couldn't have picked him out of a crowd. He played football, all this stuff. So yeah, it's amazing because the brain has this. I mean, I'm nowhere near as knowledgeable about the brain as everybody here is. I've learned more in the last hour than I care to admit.
Same.
But the brain seems to just have this thing where it can recover from damage and adapt to a situation in ways that no other human piece of the anatomy could actually pull off, I guess.
It plays into what we call neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to restructure itself. And I did see in the chat here, somebody asked about cultures that share their DNA with Neanderthals. That is also true, yes. And that is mainly Europeans. If you're white, you probably have some Neanderthal DNA. And the reason behind that is so there's two different competing theories for how humans spread across came about and spread out around the world. The one that has the most evidence for it, that makes the most sense, is called Out of Africa 2, which is that Homo sapiens evolved in Africa, spread all over the world. There's also what's called the multi-regional hypothesis, which really doesn't hold any water as far as I'm concerned, which is that all these different other little populations of humans all just intermingled and interbred and came up with this mutt that we call Homo sapiens. And the reason why that exists is because that shit did happen. It just isn't the result of what it isn't where Homo sapiens come from. We did interbreed everything. That's where Neanderthals went. We used to think that we drove Neanderthals to extinction. Turns out we literally fucked them into non-existence. Every time we met the Neanderthals, we interbred with them until we just absorbed them into our species. And that's where they went. And so white people who moved up out of Africa into Europe, you okay, Nat?
I fucked them out of existence. That's
I
didn't expect that wording.
When white people, when our ancestors came up out of Africa and went to Europe, we met the very last Neanderthals, and so we do have a little bit of Neanderthal DNA. There is a branch of pseudoscience that says that is where white people came from, is that's where Neanderthals, and that Asian people bred with Denisovans and black people bred with Homo erectus and all. That's bullshit, and it's racist nonsense. It's insanity. And it is a leftover from a misunderstanding of the multi-regional hypothesis. So overall is humans evolved in Africa. The very first humans were black. There were lots of other species of humans at the time. We met them, we bred with them, and now we're us. And that's your fucking life. That's history right there.
I'll drink to
Welcome to science class.
We have another question for the panel.
Yeah.
Done by GB. Do you think that objective logic-based approach as an opposed to belief/emotional based approach is a product of evolution? And if so, which do you think is the more progressive approach? Sorry.
I'm
still breathing.
That's deep.
There's a lot to go into there.
Yeah.
There's a
so
bit to go into.
Very interesting.
I would, yeah. So really quickly, all right. Brief history of brains. Okay, just where this goes. 2.5 million years ago, on the plains of Africa, right? The Earth is getting cooler and drier as we're entering the Pleistocene, the Ice Age, and Africa is changing. At this time, we have the Australopithecines. They're living out there. We're already walking upright. They got that, and there's some evidence of tool usage already, like Lomequian tools. I'm not a fan, but whatever. It is kind of sort of accepted. It's up in the air. Anyway, so the Australopithecines exist 2.5 million years ago. As Africa gets cooler and drier, there's a split, and the split comes from definite tool usage we can all agree on, right? What we have are called Oldowan tools, the very, very first stone tools that we can all agree existed. And so we have this split with the Australopithecines, where on the one side, we have what are called the Paranthropines, which used to be called the robust Australopithecines, but that was fucking stupid. And so these are called the Paranthropines, where you have things like Paranthropus boisei, also known as the Nutcracker Man, who's one of my favorite fossils. He's so cool. And on the other side, you've got Homo habilis, what we call the handy man, or the handy person, it should be, which he's making the very first stone tools. These creatures are. By making these first stone tools, these choppers, we're able to break open bones and scoop out bone marrow. We're able to scrape off meat from bones. We now have access to new nutrients and new resources, especially bone marrow, which is super fatty, and that allows us to build what are called glial cells, which myelinate or insulate our neurons and make them work better. So we now have this new resource that literally fuels brain development, and that fueled brain development allows us to make better tools. 1 million years later, we learned that we can sharpen both sides of a rock, and then we have Acheulean tools, which come along with Homo erectus. And so now we have better tools, better resources, brains get even bigger. Better tools, better resources, brains get even bigger. This happens again and again and again as we go through Lavawa tools and all these other different methodologies, and all the way to the Upper Paleolithic until we get the tools that we have today. A couple of fascinating things to think about with this. Number one is that tools made us as much as we made them. We are together in this. We are literally cyborgs. We evolved with technology in hand to make technology. Second thing you got to think about is that extends out and changes the landscape around us. When we talk about a situation called the extended phenotype, a beaver's dam is part of the beaver. It's something that is literally something they have to do. And all the changes downstream, all the ecological changes down there, all the species that go extinct or find new homes are also a part of the beaver's DNA. And in the same way, all of the amazing things that humans have created, from the technology that you're watching me on right now, cell phones, climate change, dams, everything, is a part of what it means to be a human, and that's fucking sick. And this is all to do with how our brains developed. I do not remember why I started talking about this, but
because we wanted to know rationale over emotional rationale.
That's what it is. Yes. And so, thank you. And so this ends in the best tools that we've ever made. Thank you so much.
No, I do the same shit all the time. I get so carried away. I'm like, I forgot where I was going.
What am I doing? So we start with these simple stone tools and we work our way up to really complex and exciting stone tools, because the best tool that we ever made is logic and science, a tool that isn't actually tangible, a tool that checks who we are as a natural thing. Because evolutionarily, we're incredibly reactionary and emotional and weird, and we go off the cuff and we believe things because we want to believe things. We see patterns where there aren't any. We have all these hangups, all these fallacies that are built into our brains because that helped us survive in Africa. But now we're able to use our brains to make our brains better. And that is the best tools that human ever made. And that is, yes, absolutely a part of evolution. And it's why we understand evolution. Just like stardust coagulating into planets and humans, and we're a way that the universe can observe ourselves, we evolved to understand evolution. And that's the coolest fucking shit I can think about.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's our greatest evolutionary trait, and it may also be our downfall.
It'll be our doom.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. What I'm hearing from you, Forrest, is if we eat more bone marrow, we'll eventually be able to develop the technology to teleport.
I'm not saying that isn't
that correctly.
That isn't not what I'm getting at.
I'm just saying veganism is bull if we want to continue evolution.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I will drink to that.
Making sure.
By the way, if anybody hasn't tried bone marrow, you're not living, man. Get some fucking bone marrow and barley.
Right when it comes out of a smoker, fucking slurp that shit. Is delicious.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. I see Charlie Darwinning was in the chat as well. I do have to talk to you about Lomekwi tools. You and I have been back and forth on it. We've never had a chance to actually discuss it.
Do you want to discuss it on our channel sometime?
It would be me rambling. But unless you want to get him on here. I mean, like,
it doesn't have to be tonight. I was just saying, like, we can have an event where you guys just discuss this.
It's not my show. You guys decide amongst yourselves. We'll figure it out.
You had a really good nap earlier.
Yeah. Ricky's open to letting us just run with this and hijack.
I don't make the decisions for the man who hosts the show.
I don't really give a shit what happens for about 2 hours. After that, I'm done, and we're about 10 minutes. We got about 10 minutes left.
So we could always have another night where we do this, because I would love to. I would love to have an anthropology and evolutionary night on Nerds and Heresy. That would be awesome.
Charlie Darwinning is a great guy for it. He's very, very educated in bioanthropology.
I'm not sure. I'm not acquainted.
I'm not either. Charlie Darwinning.
He's on TikTok.
Is he on TikTok?
He's on TikTok. Yeah, he's on my following list if you want to find him.
Is it Charlie Darwinning?
Is that still his TikTok?
Yeah, it's his TikTok handle as well, yeah. And he makes great content.
Do I follow you? I don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do right now myself. No, Milo, Mini Minuteman, we've discussed over the show.
He follows me. Oh, I don't follow him, but he follows me. Now we follow each other.
These cool people. I will admit to some sadness. I never got anything recorded for his video about Rome.
Oh, him.
Yeah, okay. Well, it came about right after Turkey Day, and then for 2 weeks after Turkey Day, it is scrambled to get all those reports done.
Yeah.
To work before I mustered out for the season, and then Christmas, and Christmas panic, and New Year's, and then no, I haven't had time to do shit.
And now maybe
Archaeologist, you're the angry pagan archaeologist, right?
That's me.
Following your shit now as well.
Is that what your bio says right now?
Yeah, but I was gonna change it to because I've had a lot of people start. A lot of people have started to see the one I did. So one of the videos that happened after I did that ridiculous parody of time travel with Marv from Home Alone, somebody was like, "Oh no, you're gonna get in trouble." To which I just kind of was like, "No, man. Archaeologists are actually all work for the Stargate program. I'm not gonna get in trouble for shit." So many people start actually seeing that again, and I was thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna have to change something, that reflects the fact that I played that plan."
Charlie, oh, Mom Millennial blocked you. She likes to follow me, apparently. I only just found this out because she made a freaking video about me.
Sometimes people get blocked by accident. I've done that before.
Ooh.
I don't block people. I make it a point not to.
I have like 3 people blocked.
I have 2, one of which is a in real life stalker, and that is.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's it.
Matt has failed to let me know about this or let me know where I can find said stalker.
Nope. I don't tell you these things because you have emotional responses to them, physical emotional responses to them, which are not
just because my dad told me the best
evolution
body where it'll never be found means nothing.
It's actually a different person than who you think it is. So it's a different person.
Many holes can be dug.
Many holes can
live
be
in a country with bears.
I'd like to make a note really quick. If anyone on here watches and wants to try and bother me, I have a very large bear man who will protect me.
I know where all the bears are. That's all I know.
Oh man.
Anyway. No, I'm glad I brought you on because I wanted you to meet Forrest because I do want us to have an anthropology talk at some point. And Absolutely. If nothing else, we can just do a 3-way live on TikTok or 4-way live on TikTok to discuss all the fun things, which would be a blast. Yeah.
Forrest and I commiserate on being that close, from what I've gathered anyway, that close to being done with one's thesis.
Yeah, it's painful.
Someone else I know needs to sit there and do a little.
Close enough to know what I'm doing, far enough away to really just not give a shit anymore. And I just want to stop. I just want to stop, but I know I'd never forgive myself.
I understand that.
But
I actually,
by the way,
I feel like that's the point of grad school, is to push you just past your breaking point to prove that you can go that far.
It's like you go to grad school, you lose yourself, and then you finish.
Yep. You've lost yourself.
Like, I have lost myself. Congratulations. Here's
your
certificate.
I actually found out the other day, I sent a bunch of stuff in to my professor, and they actually sent me a link. They're like, you have to cite yourself. I'm like, the hell do you mean? What? Yeah. So apparently in 2010, I submitted an abstract to do a conference in Boise, Idaho that I never went to because stupid kid,
Yeah.
They accepted my abstract, and my abstract was actually printed in the brochure for the conference. And then I found out I actually have to do this. So not only did I throw my thesis away, start over completely last April to the topic I'm on now, which is I kind of dredged out from the back closet to rebuild and turn into an actual thesis. I now have to cite myself.
You know what, you mentioned it. I did the exact same thing. I submitted an abstract to a conference of the Oklahoma Academy of Science, and I went and did a terrible presentation. And now I'm published there in their little proceedings. They published my abstract. So I'm gonna have to now you think about it. Like, that's great.
Oh shit!
Hey, I can do this shit like I said I could a while ago.
Well, that just makes things different because now I have to think about, because then that means I'm technically published too.
Yeah.
It's like if I go in my master's, I'm like, oh shit, and I have to cite myself as well.
Forrest, you're in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
He's nearby.
I lived in Tulsa for a year during flight school.
Oh, really? That's where I live now. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I study at the
another
University
reason
of Tulsa.
for you to visit, Morgan. Just saying.
Kilkenny's on Cherry Street. Have you been?
No.
Okay. If you get a chance, you must go. Awesome little Irish pub. The guy who owns it.
Oh, Kilkenny's.
Kilkenny's. Yes.
I thought you said Pennies. I was like, what is that? Yeah, no, I go to Kilkenny's all the time. It's my favorite spot.
So, crazy story. When I was in flight school, I bought myself tickets to a concert because how old was I? 25? 25. I turned 25 and I had nobody around to go to my birthday party with me. So my friend who's going to go with me bailed at the last minute because the Dropkick Murphys were not her thing.
You went to Dropkick Murphys?
Oh, it gets better than that. You're going to hate me so much.
I'm going to hate you so much.
So I went to the concert by myself, to which I meet this girl who's about my age. And it was a great time for about 10 minutes. And then she disappears like a pixie. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I watch the show. I skip about 10 minutes before everybody else does because I have an understanding that it's going to become a madhouse trying to get out of the parking lot. So I go to Kilkenny's, and I'm there, and there's about a dozen people there. And this girl comes in about 45 minutes later, and she says, "Oh, hey, you're here. It's great that you're here." And she looks at the bartender. She's like, "How much to close the doors before my clients come? After my clients come in?" And the bartender's like, the stereotype.
No.
The glass is like,
no, she was their manager.
She pulls out a checkbook, writes him a check for $15,000.
You could have dated the manager.
And the doors close after the people I represent get here. And he's like, "What about my customers?" And she's like, there's a dozen of us, and the place is, decent size. She's like, that they really don't matter, but nobody else can come in after my people come in. And he's like, "Yeah, sure." In come the Dropkick Murphys and a couple of their stuff. So in the box, in the storage unit, I've got all the albums signed, still in plastic, and 5 or 6 T-shirts. And I drank with them till about 4 a.m. at Kilkenny's in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It was
excellent.
The highlight of living there. It really was.
That was such a flex.
I used to, so I'm an informal educator. Schools and whatnot hire me out to come do science demonstrations, after school workshops, whatever. And when I was first starting my career, I was teaching at the Catholic school across the street from there. And I would go there every day for lunch and then go across the street and try to teach those kids about science, carefully tiptoeing around things like evolution and whatnot. And then I got kicked the fuck out of another school. It wasn't, I don't think it was that one, because a kid asked me how stars worked, and we talked about it. We talked about stellar nucleosynthesis and where new atoms came from. And I got an angry phone call the next day from the principal, like, "Hey, a bunch of students went home and told their parents that stars made them, not Jesus. Don't ever come back here again."
What?
Holy cow.
And so I drank at Kilkenny's to make it all better.
Well,
that is such a flex.
Stars are older
God
than
damn.
Jesus, so
The entire interior of that place was brought over from Dublin, right?
Yeah. They shipped it all over to make it authentic. Yeah. It's a beautiful place. It's a lovely little restaurant. I go in there and grab a cobbler with my honeybear every now and
That's where
again.
we're going to go have drinks. When I come visit,
Absolutely.
that's where we're meeting.
Absolutely. Whenever you guys come to Tulsa, we'll go to Kilkenny's, and I'll buy everybody around to something.
And I'm just over here on the East Coast.
You're coming to Tulsa too.
You're
coming to Tulsa too.
Be there.
Ricky, you are closer to Tulsa than I am.
I do have a fun announcement, though. Maybe I'll make.
Oh yeah, you should make this announcement.
Should I do that?
Oh,
by all means.
You need to. Oh, I haven't told
I
you
best
guys.
pay close attention to this.
I have been officially invited to speak at the American Atheist Convention in April in Atlanta, Georgia.
Girl!
They're going to pay for my flight, my hotel. They're going to give me a spending allowance. But yeah, they want me to come in and speak and give a presentation.
Nice. You are living my absolute dream right now, my guy. That's fantastic.
I'm
so
fucking
proud.
blown away. Like I was on the phone with like the coordinator, and they're supposed to give me another phone call later this week to try and iron out some more details. Now there's a possibility it's going to be canceled and go all virtual again. But at the moment, they want to fly me out there to speak.
When's that happening? When's that?
April
6th,
16th, 17th, 18th, something like that.
Jeff has been on my ass trying to make sure I can go.
It's like a 4-day
event.
I
don't know.
This goddamn brain plate out here.
So those of you who are watching the show, you get you're privy to some new information.
That's very cool.
An announcement that
I'm going to write them an angry letter
Do it.
Tell them
You did not invite me.
if you sons of bitches are gonna have this guy out,
Well, I
how
mean,
dare you?
well, so yeah, that's what I was saying. It's
I'll
like, I
have you know
messaged
that I
Jeff.
am a D-list internet celebrity.
I messaged Jeff and I was like, Jeff, they're paying Captain Dadpool to go out there, and Jeff was just like, if they do a panel, I'm gonna make sure you get out there too. And I was like, oh.
But that's another like possibility is like when she called me, it was like the event coordinator. She called me, and it was like a 10-minute long conversation because I was in the middle of like giving my 4 kids a bath, so it was chaotic. And so we talked very briefly, and she's like, we thought about like having like a discussion panel with like other TikTok, because it's run by elderly people who don't know what the fuck TikTok is. They don't know. And they were like, we've seen your name come across our desk quite a lot, and we don't know what TikTok is. So, and I was like, y'all need to get on TikTok. It's exploded this past year in the skeptic deconstruction community, et cetera, whatever.
I'm in the shadow of giants here, seeing Forrest following me.
You're telling me I now have a large following of huge creators, and I'm
you kind of do, don't you?
Followers. I'm just like, I don't know what I do to deserve this.
Listen, Morgan,
you're top 4 for sure. Well, top 5. I forgot Donnie.
Morgan, you and I are both followed by Donnie Dust. All right.
Who we also need to talk to at some point.
That's a pretty big flex.
You do, yeah.
Mad jelly about
do a lot
that
of public appearances though.
Anyway, Forrest, you know who Donnie Dust is?
Oh God, yeah. No, I actually brought last semester. I had to do a course in lithic analysis of stone tools, and we had a whole thing about like how flint knapping works and everything. Of course, like we had to go out and actually practice it. And my professor that's his whole job. He is a researcher on lithics, and that's all his papers are on other. And I was like, hey, yo, check this guy out. He's got over 1 million followers just making these stone, and he's watching like, that's exactly how you do it. That's great. He's freaking out. Loving it.
Yeah, I also sent a few Donnie Dust videos to my old advisor just because he thinks he's not on TikTok.
He's on a show on Netflix, like a wilderness survival show.
Oh shit! I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
It was like a certain show, a certain season he was on.
I've been thinking. I don't know. I wanted to touch on like do anti-theist TikToks a little bit, but I feel there's so many people out there that are already doing it so well. You, Genevieve, Lilith, I Blame Bill. Like you guys are doing an amazing job. And like, what am I going to say that you haven't already said? Plus, I know that I'm going to have such a problem, siphoning through the people that are just there for the science. Every time I talk about anything political, fucking, I liked you when you talked about science, but now you're talking about the science that matters.
Yeah.
So
anytime I talk about getting the vaccination,
yes,
other atheists will come in the comments and be like, I liked you when you were against the Bible, but fuck you for wanting.
If I talk about vaccines, if I talk about trans rights, if I talk about anything, and they're like, oh, this is liberal science. I'm like, no, it's called fucking evidence, prick. You got to look at it.
No, I agree. One of the things I think is so interesting is there's the atheist community and then there's the science community. And even though the atheist community, a lot of them do like some science, and the science community tends to fall under the atheist umbrella, there's no there's no absolute bridge between the two. And that's
the outskirts of that Venn diagram is so weird.
Yeah, I'm sitting in this little bridge here, and this is like where I'm trying to create myself a little niche where I can talk about science and I can talk about atheism, but I don't really I don't know enough about the Bible to like really.
That bridge is like wagon and Oregon Trail that you might follow.
Yeah.
So we talked about this the past couple of shows. There was like this really interesting phenomenon in the skeptic atheist community with conspiracy theory.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who fancy themselves as being critical thinkers, logicians, skeptics who cling to conspiracy theories. And it's really weird. I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and I'm like reflecting on my own like deconstruction experiences. Like when you leave your religion, like you start questioning like everything. Like what is real? What is real life right now? And so I'm wondering if that like makes you more subject to these conspiracy theories, because it gives you a sense of like control at a period where you feel like you are completely out of control of your own life and the information that goes in your brain. So I think a lot of these other atheists who are deconstructing from their religion, they cling to these conspiracy theories as like a coping mechanism. I'm not really sure. But it's weird. Like there's all these atheists who are like, the Romans invented Jesus in the 3rd century. I'm like, that's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Are you serious? Really?
Well,
what I've found is that with this whole concept, with this whole branching and getting the atheists and the actual science and the decent critical thinking skills necessary is to use anthropologists and archaeologists as a way to branch them. And those with that kind of background tend to be able to reach the people in a more tangible sense. I've found, like, if you're a chemist, you come out here throwing some
chemistry, which has to be written down on a piece of paper, you can't actually show it in your hand. Yeah,
exactly. But an anthropologist can be like, okay, I see where you're coming from, but let's think of it this way, because we're literally trained to think the way people think, but also understand that there's a science behind it. So it's that's where it's also really frustrating, is because then you have the conspiracy theorists that are like, well, you're only trained to think this way.
You're part of the conspiracy.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've gotten that a lot.
Yeah.
I actually have to explain Graham Hancock to somebody. Somebody left me a comment, and I'm sitting there like, do I just leave this, or do I actually take it on again?
I like telling people that I'm part of the conspiracy to spread as many conspiracy theories as possible so they don't pay attention to the real conspiracy. Because as long as they're concerned about 5G and vaccines and the moon landing, they won't see the actual shit that's going on. That's what it's real all about.
Yeah. Like,
real talk, though. I don't know if I've told you this story, but one time, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic when the 5G towers were first going up and everybody thought that bats were going to spread nanobots to the thing.
Yes.
And I was explaining all this shit. An actual human being accused me of being a robot that was sent by the government to spread science to turn people away from God. I was accused of being a cyborg.
And that's gold. That is
so
gold.
proud of you. Welcome to the cyborg circle.
That's when I knew that I needed to be an influencer. This is my life now.
Yep.
You need to make that a t-shirt.
You need it.
I was once accused of being a cyborg. That is absolutely a flex.
Yeah, no, it's like, welcome to the cyborg circle.
I've only been called a corporate shill, which really had nothing to do with what I was talking about that day.
But it was a word that they heard on Fox News, and so they called you that word too.
Yep.
Indeed.
Yep. Corporate shill. That's a Fox News idiom.
It was because I
shit.
had a piece of gold ore in my hand, and I explained the value of what was in that chunk of rock I had, how much it would cost to get it out. And someone was like, "You're a corporate shill," and I'm like,
"Oh,
geez, shrill." And I was like, "You mean shill?" Hey, look, a shirt.
Provenance.
Provenience.
In like a Norse rune type.
I like it.
Nice.
One will be coming your way eventually.
I've been only hearing this for about 4 months, so
that's only because they kept ordering the wrong size.
Where do you are you designing merch?
Fat. Pick the biggest.
Dustin's wife makes stuff every now and then. If I get excited about something, she'll make something. So I keep saying, like, get a 3X, cool. And then she's like, I got a 3X. What does this say?
Not
a 3X. And I was like, can't send this to him. It'll just piss him off.
Okay,
so
I have found, and Ricky, be very pleased that you are not as big as I am. Depending on brand, depending on cut, I am either a 2X to a 4X, and I am a 36 to a 42.
Let's go this way. When I held this up to me,
depending on brand,
so for me,
no matter what I do, I can't go.
It fits me okay.
It sounds like the same problem my wife has. Like, all I need is like a medium. Medium. I'm fucking give me a medium shirt. I will be able to fit into that.
That means that Ricky can literally wear all my clothes and they will be baggy on him.
Yeah, they will.
I'm a skinny little boy. and I'm very long, and so I can't
I
find
need them
shit.
long.
Every shirt that I wear is either fucking skin tight or it's a tent, and every pair of pants that I wear is just, it's not going to happen. It's up to my fucking knees,
And if it's
no
a
matter
long
what.
sleeve, it always comes to here.
Yeah,
Oh my god, dude!
Extra long. This is an extra
I had to
long,
have-
and it just barely makes it to my wrist. I'm so
I have to have
happy
shit
about
made
that.
like custom if I'm gonna wear it in like a professional setting. Like my suit is custom. I can't. This is my merch from my merch store, which fits my body perfectly, and it's a medium, and it's wonderful, and it's
kinda
soft
want
as
that
hell.
part. I'm not
And
gonna
you
lie.
should buy it.
Because that seems to be like the
I
one.
might
Merch
just
link
have
in
to buy
bio.
it in a bit. There's a bunch of stuff that I'm trying.
I should also point out, we talked about my name at the very beginning of this. I was using the stage name Valkai and had Valkai Labs and everything as my dream before I went through with the name change. I didn't make this after myself. I'm not that arrogant. I just want to. I just realized this whole show I've got my name here on the screen and then my name again across my chest, and I look like the biggest douche in the world. I just wanted to throw out there that this was the dream before I subscribed to it.
It's okay. I also make a shirt. It says "Don't eat rocks," because that was something that was actually an issue
That's
when I
come
first
up.
started. Yeah, it has. It's actually come up more often than I care to admit, and so I have a shirt of that. Another shirt that Morgan will eventually be getting when it's in his size, which I have ordered and is at Dustin's place right now. So it should be printed and sent to him. Once
Nothing until it's in my hand. I'm sorry.
But yeah,
That said, Rob figured out a logo for me.
yay!
So
Wait,
the
you got your
request
own
for
logo?
you to do merch
Yeah.
that has been going on for 6 months might actually occur by August.
Yeah,
By
yeah.
August?
Well,
Based on my track record, yeah, probably.
yes, yeah, August.
Yeah.
And then I also have a friend that's currently designing. It's called Orbital Jewelry, and it's just all space jewelry. Everything is. It's so it like it has the constellations, and then there's like Orion, but there's astrophotography on the Orion necklace, which is really cool. They have the moon, and they have like different craters in the moon that are like you can like ask to have one stand out more than another, which is really neat. Yeah, and then they have the orbits of the planets based off of the perception of Earth, which I'm currently waiting to get my my necklace from that because I wanted the Venus flower for the longest time because it's so pretty, and I also want the Mercury one because it looks like a radioactive symbol and it makes me happy. But yeah, so that's another thing that's happening. Can I lick rocks? I do and can and will lick rocks. So
Right. Depending
know.
on what kind.
It just depends what kind. This is a geode.
This will be Natty Nat's
it's fine.
OnlyFans. I like rocks.
I like
We're gonna have one.
rocks.onlyfans.com.
Yep.
Not those kind of rocks. All right.
Well, yeah.
Um,
Anyway, so that
I need to end things. It's bedtime for me.
Forrest, let's get you
Howard-
on here again sometime. Doesn't have to be next week, but we can
Yeah,
hit me up
we can talk
whenever.
about it.
We'll make it happen.
Anytime you want to jump in the show, I'll like Morgan did today. Like I'll bring anybody in.
Well,
Yeah, if I'm ever in the neighborhood, I'll definitely swing by.
I would like to make a note. Captain Dadpool, would you take us out with an outro?
I will try my best.
Thank you all for coming. It was so nice seeing you.
Thanks, everybody. This was a lot of fun.
Bye-bye!
Take care, everybody.
Bye. Wait, hold on. Wait.
Wait.
I gotta hold on.
Wait.
Banner.
Ah.
And
I'm not gonna stop waving.
hold on. Outro.
We're still live.
And broadcast.
Are we still
goddamn
live
it.
again? Son of a